list, it's only, I'm almost 100% sure that that saying, that quote came about when somebody reached this level, right? When somebody got to this next level of conscious unskillfulness. Because what we start to notice when we become aware are all the things in our lives that we're not skillful with. Before that, we were just unaware of it, and we were just moving through life thinking that this is just how life is. A situation happens and I react to it. A circumstance happens, I react to it. That's just how everyone reacts. Everyone gets pissed off at a red light, right? Everyone gets pissed off when they hit a traffic jam and they're on their way to wherever they want to go, right? It's just normal. It's not, it's a choice. But if we don't realize it's a choice, if we're not present, we're just going to continue to make those same choices, thinking, oh, this is just how it is. It's just how I am. This is how I live my life. And so once we create a contemplative practice, then we start to become conscious of our unskillfulness. Right? And at that point that's the hardest part, guys, because then we start to see our shit. We start to see the things that we're not happy with. And we may not at that point have skillful ways of maneuvering it. But with time, seeing enough of the unskillfulness, it will motivate us. This is the kind of cool part of this, is that pain is a beautiful motivator. When we become conscious of our pain, of the areas of our life that we're unskillful in, we become motivated to change it, right? We can't stay stuck here. We just can't. It's easy to stay stuck here because we're not conscious of it. We think this is just how I am. But once we open our eyes, once we wake up and we realize that, oh, I'm not happy with a lot of areas of my life, then I have motivation to change it. At that point, we shift to conscious skillfulness, where I consciously make decisions. I'm giving myself the ability through my meditation practice to choose in the moment what I want, because I'm very clear on where I'm going. Does that make sense? If I don't know where I'm going, it's hard to make choices in the moment, right? I'll just make the same choices. But if I know where I'm going, this is why the Awaken Life Academy is so vital in this practice of growing, because we get really crystal clear on where it is that we want to go. Where's your destination? On several main areas of our lives, right? You can have multiple destinations, obviously, and depending on if it's personal, if it's relationships, if it's your service. Now, once I know where I'm going, I'm conscious and I can make skillful decisions based off where I want to go. And then once I do this enough, I can become unconsciously skillful. Now, I don't fall back asleep. I just don't have to have effort in my choice making. My choices become a more effortless experience because I know what I want and where I'm going. Does that make sense? You guys tracking? The issue we see, yeah, thanks, Courtney. The issue we see here is that once you become aware, it increases the pressure and the noise here. And if you're not ready to deal with that level of discomfort, you will actively seek things that will pull you back into this level. You now know your eyes are open, but you will then start making excuses as to why this doesn't work. And you'll fall back on these old identities, all these old beliefs of who you thought you were, and now you've been given this glimpse. But I guess my point is, over the years we've done this, the reason people don't progress to this is that they're not willing to lean into the discomfort, the pressure, and the noise of actually seeing now that there's a possibility of a different future for themselves, a different reality for themselves. And so if we're not willing to lean into the discomfort, and I mean it sincerely, it's literally like pressure and noise because you see it and it's hard to deal with it, we will try to actively seek excuses from other people or our internal environment, our internal storyteller, to fall back into, and now I see it, but that's not me. Oh, I see it, but I'm just not capable of that. Oh, I see it, but my upbringing precludes me from ever experiencing that. And all of a sudden it'll make you feel better, right? It'll make you feel better because you now have let yourself off the hook, but it's not moving you forward. It's moving you back. That's the pitfall here, is not being willing to lean into the discomfort of the pressure and the noise of being able to see what you couldn't see before. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna change and pivot now, and you all are gonna do a quiz. What? Our lives, having a feeling, no direction. That's a tough question. So Kelly asks, what if we're unsure where to go next in our lives, having a feeling of no direction? That's a tough place to be. It's a really common place, honestly, Kelly. There's a lot of people feel that same way. Like, I don't know where I want to go. And in that case, Chris, you may have something else to say. In that case, we just simply need to choose a direction, because there's a lot. Because most often, it may not be this way with you, Kelly, but most often with people, they have a sense of where they want to go. They have a sense of it, right? They know where they want to go, but there's something bigger that's blocking them from getting really clear on that. And a lot of times it comes down to, if I get very crystal clear, if I decide this is where I want to go, now I've all of a sudden set up a opportunity to fail, right? Failure is one of our biggest fears. And if we all of a sudden get crystal clear on what my destination is, then I am very crystal clear of when I fail on moving towards it, when I don't hold myself accountable to do the steps I need to do every day, right? All of a sudden it magnifies it and makes it hurt more when I'm not actually progressing in that direction, or I move and I quotations fail, or I get a sample, right? Or I get a result that I'm not happy with. It hurts more if I know where it is that I want to go and what I want to do. And so that a lot of times stops people from saying, this is what I want, I'm going to go this direction. They keep it in a very vague term and don't really get crystal clear on it, because then if I move towards it, I don't really know. If I fail, I don't really know, or it doesn't hurt so bad. I don't really have to hold myself accountable. So that's a lot of times where people get stuck, Kelly. And it really, I mean, honestly, like, and if you're like, I have no idea where I want to go, then I would say, what's your favorite thing, and choose it and run at it. And run at it, and if you get there and it's not right, then choose again, right? Because this is the beauty of life, is that we get to keep choosing, right? We get to keep doing it.
Yeah, and essentially, if you're pure, like, I really just don't know, then you just need to do a discovery session of what lights you up, And what's interesting is that if you take your life back, there is a certain point in your life, most likely, where you had a vision or you had a feeling of, oh, this would be really cool. And then we are systematically taught out of that, not malevolently, not because there's these evil people trying to like keep us like pinned down, but simply because the people we're listening to when we're younger think they have their best interest in mind, but they're not living our lives. So they're trying to push us in directions where they think you will be safe and secure, which is a total illusion. So you need to go after, like, there's a woman we used to know, and she unfortunately passed away. She always wanted to be a farmer. That's what she wanted, to raise like animals and be on a farm. And her parents said, you'll never make any money doing that. You need to go into a very safe and secure field. So go be an accountant. And so that's what she did. And she was unhappy until later on in life, when she finally, she went through this process of therapy called, I think it was the Gestalt method. Anyway, so she went through it and she realized, like, she reconnected with that early desire for her to be a farmer of all things. And she quit her job and chose to jump into it. But, the sad story is that as she was in it and she was doing it, she was diagnosed with cancer and pretty quickly passed away. But my point is, most often we have an inkling of an idea of what we want to do with our lives, what we were passionate about when we were younger, before we were systematically taught out of that for the safe path, the path that's going to make you enough money and give you a good life, albeit a miserable one, if we're not listening to our hearts. So
we were blessed enough to have parents that said, "Do follow your path, do what you want to do, and you'll be happy, and you'll make a living doing whatever it is you want to do." But so we had so many people, way back in the day when we thought we were going to open up a martial arts studio. One of my good friends, who was a boss of mine, but ended up being a good friend of mine, was like, "No, you're not going to make any money. How are you going to support a family and live off of that?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to make it work," right? As we started yoga studios with so many people, like right when we were about to open up our yoga studio, people were like, "What are you guys doing? You guys are smart enough to blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. What are you doing opening up a yoga studio? You're not going to make a living doing it. You and your brother, how are you going to support 2 families? How are you going to support other people? We're just going to do it. We're going to make it happen. We're going to run as fast as we can. We're going to run hard in a direction. And when we fail, we're going to get back up and do it again." Right? Here we are.
Yeah. Jade, the one thing I'd say with that is, it's funny, I had this very conversation with my wife last night. Yeah, it's better to keep running fast. Sometimes you got to slow it down, honestly, Courtney, but it's good to run fast. So Jade, I would say, for that.
So
Go ahead.
So, we talked about everything is in perspective, and in a way, your wives, I can see, just because of my experience, may have to decide to take for them a sacrifice, to play a supporting role, to kind of put maybe, and that's my destiny right now. It's like I've created a life I've always said I wanted, and the power of the mind and the secret, and you get to create. You say it and you go, and then there's times in your life where, even right now, not only all the other craziness that's going on, but just in your life, where it's about the 7 and 9-year-old, it's about them getting fed and their needs, and being my husband and his career, and supporting him so he can go, and to play a different role when you've asked for this and I've requested this, to have this marriage and this awesome unity we have. But I'm also I don't know exactly, I'm supposed to be right here right now, but it's like, so I've asked for what I have, and I've created what I have, and I don't know what's next sometimes, because just the flow of life and what I've chosen. Some people's goals in my circle might come before mine, or I sacrifice so they can grow, so they can have it, and say that's karma, where I'm putting in the due with the children, and playing the role I have to play so you can grow and become what you also want. It's hard to and nothing against men, women, but it's the roles that we feel like we have to do, and that you want it all at the same time. It's overwhelming, because you do, your stuff sometimes has to take a second place, because you're sacrificing for other people for growth, if that makes sense, where your goals are there, but they might have to take a back seat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's acknowledging the choices that you've made to bring you to this position, which is exactly, if you look back, what you've asked for, and you've done the work to get. But it doesn't end. Now it's like, okay, I have that. So what the conversation I had with my wife was like, okay, there is something that we can do, and I will help you, so that you can carve out your sense of self inside of all the sacrifice that you're making to take care of the home, to take care of our children, to do everything you do all day, every day, the relentless negotiations of just daily life, and the nonstop cleaning of everything that has to happen. I mean, this shit is relentless. It never ends. But even with all of that, there is an opportunity that I know for her that she can find, and I can help carve this thing for her inside of the sacrifice that she's making, that will disproportionately give her value beyond, like, oh, you want to go for a walk? Okay, great. I can make that happen. But what is it that you really, it's still the same question. What is it that will give you that sense of, this is me, this is my thing inside?
So I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And this is it. And that's why I am so filled with gratefulness, because my husband has taken sacrifice this weekend, to be also fully engaged and with the children. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely here. I'm definitely present. But sometimes what is it that you want next? It might be I call it like a mommy cloud or something, because it's like I haven't come out yet. My head hasn't poked out of the sandstorm yet to be able to see what's next. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
It's like you're in the thick of it. What you asked for has come to be, and you're in the thick of it. And so sometimes what's next, you just don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally. Raise your hand if this is relevant to you in your life right now. Just by a show of hands. Raise your hand if you're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of dealing with this, like, what's next idea. Yes? Yes, raise your hand. Double hands, big hands. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that, like, where the conversation goes, it's still like, oh yeah, this is very relevant. Because and this is what's so crazy to me. What we're all looking for, to some degree, is the decision that puts my life in order. that gives me everything I've ever asked for, and then I can be at peace. And I will live my life in peace for the rest of the time. It's a lie, people. It's a lie. It'll never happen.
That's
You'll
right.
never get there. You'll never get there. Because the moment you're there, you will naturally be like, okay, now what? Right? And then all of a sudden, like, Jay, you feel guilty because this is everything I've ever wanted. And I'm so blessed. I'm so privileged. But there's something lacking. It's not that it maybe it's not framed as what's lacking, it's what's next. And my point is, every one of you will have a moment, if you're not there right now, and you'll ask yourself, what's next? What is next? And this is natural. You will never have the one decision that will put your life in order. There will always be evolution. There will always be growth. There will always be, what is going to fire me up now? And this is the process of uncovering that, i.e. meditation and yoga, so that we can live that truth in the constraints that we've chosen to live right now, right? Does that make sense? In the constraints that we've chosen to live in right now, we then make choices to either break from those constraints or fit what our next level is inside of them. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and
if it was up to, what I was going to jump in is, if it was up to men to take care of the babies, we would have died out a long time ago. Like, thank God for moms.
Yeah, totally.
Thank God for mamas and your work that you do. But the other thing I want to say too is, a lot of times it's challenging. What we bump up against is, we have an idea of what we want, but we're comfortable enough, or we have the circumstances are such that we're not forced to move in that direction. There's an acquaintance of ours, Julie, and she had 3 kids, had one on the way. Her and her husband just had the 4th one, so 4 kids. And so this, like, I think 6 months old or something, and her husband left her with 4 kids. Guys, 4 kids, a newborn, 6 months old, all the way up to, it was probably every 2 years, so whatever the math is on that. And all of a sudden she's like, holy shit, he was the breadwinner. I need to figure this out. And what she said to herself was, I'm going to make this work. All of a sudden she had such fire that she created a online business, and within, I don't know, it was a year or something, it was $1 million business, right? My point is that all of a sudden circumstances in her life shifted in such a way that gave her crazy motivation, because now it wasn't her husband was gone, and she was like, I have to make this work or else. It's my kids that are on the line. I have to make this work or else. And she made it work. So a lot of times it's just simply that, and we're comfortable, but I don't want to put it like I'm not motivated. We just haven't put the fire. If we want something bad enough, we haven't put the fire in its place. This is why necessity is so important, creating necessity in our life, because it gives us the fire that drives us in a direction. Chris and I it was a perfect example of, we've been building this online experience for about 4 years, studying it for about 5 years, literally putting in the time the last 3 years of building this thing. And COVID happened and our studio shut down, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen with those. But all of a sudden we had crazy ass motivation, guys. All of a sudden we had, what's the idea of luck? It's preparedness meets circumstances. Opportunity. We had the preparedness, but the opportunity presented itself in such a way that said, guys, this is do or die, make this work. Otherwise, your business is done. And so we're like, check, here we go. So there's like, if we want something bad enough, guys, there's a way of getting the necessity aligned that pushes us in that direction, that motivates us. So,
and Jade, you're here, like, you got it. So, because you're here, like, this is the thing for you right now, which is really cool.
Well, I just want to be clear, motivation of your growing little people to be really great people. I mean, that fire is there. Okay. Doing what I'm doing in my career and just being the best I can, that's there. So I feel like it's not exactly that the fire or the passion's not there. It's sometimes like more of like, I want to say something, because I noticed something with you guys is when we started in January, I heard it a few times. You guys were contemplating and asking and seeking for you what was next. You know, you didn't know exactly what it was, and bam, that's how spirit and God and the universe works. You got it. And then you saw something there. You guys were working on it. It was like, but you didn't know. Like, let's be sometimes honest, you don't know the future. And that is kind of what we're saying is yoga and living in right here and right now. And this is what is. Not necessarily what is always out in the future. Like, you can have stuff in your heart that's burning and you're doing on the back burner. But sometimes you don't know the clear direction. You've had clarity at times, but sometimes it took something, right? Is that fair to say that you guys were asking for something? I actually even saw you asking, like, we're studying to see what's next, and you guys were doing some of those seminars. Tony Robinson, it was, right, where, you know, and this opportunities present itself.
Yeah, so we knew in the realm, what we had super clarity on was we want to create an online business. We knew that was it. What we started chasing was, okay, we want to help these people. Nope, no, we don't. We want to help those people. Nope, no, we don't. We want to help these people. No, literally those 4 different iterations of us spending time, energy, and money to chase, this is what we want. And we realized we got there, we're like, no, that's not it. So we had the vision of, we want this online business. So we had the clarity, we had the fire, but we were just,
you manifested the coronavirus so this shit could happen for you.
I know, right?
You know what? I mean, think of like this: the power of now and the traditional yoga, and how like the universe really works to conspire to get you what you want, and it's mind blowing. You know what I mean? Like it's powerful, and I you know, it's all around, and we're creating. And I love how sometimes we just don't know, but the universe knows.
Always.
The universe knows what you've asked for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, guys. Just
for sure. And
yeah,
you know, and again, when you have young kids and being a mom and like taking care of a family and supporting a husband, there's like Chris said it before, that's on a whole different level of craziness and intensity and skill levels that that's challenging. And within that, it's still so important to see your visions, to see your dreams, and even if it's, all right, let me just take one little, let me do a teacher training. So take one little step in that direction, and move it. And more importantly, let me say this, more importantly, because it goes back to what Kelly was asking before, more importantly, it's to move in a direction, to have a vision, to know that I want to go in this way, even if I get there and I realize, no, it's not quite this. It's not quite that. And Chris just said it. We did it 4 times, spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money moving in a direction, getting there and realizing, no, this isn't it. Let me choose again. But what's it? Proverbs, can't remember what the number is, but without vision, people perish. You guys have heard that quote, right? Without vision, the people will perish. And this is what they're talking about. That without having a vision of where we're going, without vision of an expanded version of myself, I will just drift. It's like a boat in the middle of the ocean without having a destination. Right? So, cool.
So we're now going to pivot into something that's not as important, but is part of the training. So I need you to pull out something to write on, something to write with. It's so true. We're going to give you a quiz. Where are we? Here, yeah, we're going to be the first person to write down.
Okay, so let's do this. This is going to be a breakdown of a vinyasa class. Breakdown of a vinyasa class or a flow class. And I want you to give me the name of each step, the pinnacle of each step, line or lines of focus for each step.
Say it again.
And then the class composition, 5 class composition principles. Okay, so it's breakdown of a flow class, the name of each step. Oh, there you go. Chris put it in the chat. Name of each step, pinnacles pinnacle for each step, line or lines of focus, because there's some steps that have multiple lines. And then the 5 class composition principles. Cool. And if you need to see that, Chris just put it in the chat so you have it there.
I put name of each step. It's name, pinnacle, lines of focus for each step, and then 5 class composition principles. Let me do this. This would be really cool. I'm going to give him 5 minutes.
Yeah. Screen sharing. Yeah. Screen sharing.
What are we doing?
Pop quiz.
Where is it?
All right, so they'll be back in a second, but they said, so you're listing all the steps of the vinyasa flow, the pinnacle, and then which lines go with each step. And then, what do you say, the 5?
Courtney, if you look in the chat, can you
Look in the chat. I'll shut up.
Oh, you're good, Phil. No worries, man. If you look in the chat, I put in the quiz is the breakdown of a flow class, name of each
It
step.
doesn't show me. It just shows me this timer. And I went pee, that's why I didn't hear it.
Oh, gotcha. Here, the timer in the.
Oh, I got it. You're good. I got it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So that's interesting. If you have the screen share the chat.
Yeah, no, I didn't. All right. How was that for everybody?
Just as much fun this time as it was last time.
It's good. I'm hoping like that was lots of fun. How was, did everyone pretty much get it? Where are your hiccups?
Nailed it.
Nice, awesome, Melody.
It's okay if that was a struggle, guys. It's all right. Like if you're like, no, it didn't, I couldn't remember any of it. It's all right. What I want you to do now is to go into your notes and find the section that has the whole breakdown. Pull it up here. And correct yourself. So is it anything like check, make sure your answers are right, but then also make sure that if you got something wrong or you didn't fill it in, go back and fill it in. This is going to trigger in those RAS receptors of ours. It's going to trigger that for you to, it's going to highlight what you got wrong. So the chances of you forgetting it or not remembering it are lessened. Does that make sense? All right, so it should be in your notes. Let's see. You can also find, let me find the section in your manual too. You can have your notes with you. That. Is there anything else to break down?
The breakdown of the EOS class?
I thought it was that, but I don't think it is.
No, that was, we put that on the whiteboard.
Oh yeah, that's right, we did. Oh, you know what? I have it on my. It's okay. It is in here, but it's not just clear cut. It is in here.
Yeah, yeah, they dig into it, but we put it on the
Session notes on there.
yeah, on the projector. That's how we did it.
Were you muted? No. So guys, as you're going through this, something I want you guys to realize with these quizzes, obviously you can't turn them in, but even if we were together, we wouldn't turn them in anyway. This information that we're quizzing you on is like vital information for you to know as a teacher, right? Why are we doing what we're doing when we're doing it? Why do we set up a class the way we do? What are we, why are we following myofascial methodology? Like this is like the framework, the foundation of being a very good teacher. And so what we're doing here are simply, I call them quizzes, but they're really just check-ins. And they're not check-ins for us, they're check-ins for you. Like where are you as far as retaining this information, understanding this information as you're going through a class, being able to pick out what step 1 is, step 2 is, step 3 is. When you're going through a class, being able to pick out what the pinnacles are, being able to pick out what the simpler poses that build into the more complex poses to create the pinnacle, right? To understand this kind of information. So this is what these quizzes are about. And when we get to the very end, this is going to be what we're going to ask you. everything we're quizzing you on, all of this stuff is going to be the exact same thing we're going to ask you at the very end. Except at the very end, we'll just say, hey, turn it in. Right? And so every one of these, a better term, every one of these check-ins, these quizzes, right, are simply just for you to say, okay, I know what this is, I know what this is, I know what this, oh, I'm stuck here. Why am I stuck here? Why am I, and then getting unstuck there, and then being able to go through the information really, really, not just because what we've been taught in school is to memorize, take a test on it, and then forget it, right? You memorize it so that you can do well on the test, and then you forget it because you're not applying it. And what we want to do is for you to learn this information and being able to apply it as you're teaching, obviously, but even at this stage, to see a class, to take a class, and to be able to pick out all these pieces that we're talking about. Like what are the names of each step? Or the names of each step are literally what we're doing: centering and warm up, standing and twisting, balancing and back bending, core work, deep back bends, and then finishing and closing poses, right? That is the structure of a class. Those are exactly what we're doing in the class, right? The lines of focus and blah, 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 and so on and so forth, right? It all relates to the structure of the class, anatomic harmony or myofascial methodology, and then how do you build the class based off your pinnacle poses, simple to complex, and obviously the rule of 15 and side loading as guidelines on how you would set that class up. Because there is going to be a point when, like, at some point, if you start to take off with this and start teaching, that you're going to say, well, I want to change my class. I want to shift the structure. How do I change the class? How do I shift the structure? This is how. Following these guidelines, using myofascial methodology, building your pinnacles out, doing that through a process called simple to complex, using the guidelines of side loading and the rule of 15 so that you know exactly how to position the poses to build up to more complex poses. So, but I guess what I really want to say is I don't want anyone to worry that all of a sudden we're going to get to the end of this course and we're going to give you some giant test and you guys, it's like a pass and fail thing, right? We want to do all the work up front. Like, so if you get to the end and we give you this, we ask you these same questions and you can't fill out any of them, we did something wrong. That's on us, they're not on you, right? And that's not going to happen. We're going to get to the end and you guys are going to know, because we're going to quiz you on it like every single weekend, every day for every weekend, almost every session, we're going to give you a quiz that pulls that information back in front of you and say, oh, this is what I need to know. Oh, this is what I need to know. Oh, this is what I need to know. So I don't want you guys to worry about like the end and tests or anything like that. You're already doing the work. You're showing up, you're doing these quizzes, these check-ins for you to see where you are if you retain the information. So, so hopefully that helps. Any questions about
Along that line, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So last month when we met, the last two steps were, the breakdown was incredibly helpful for me. But I left that going, oh my God, if I had to explain that to somebody, I don't even know some of the words you were saying because I had never really heard them before. Anyway, so I guess I was wondering, are we going to be required to explain, probably not in your depth, but to a certain level, why we're doing what we're doing or how things are the way they are? I'm not clear on what that expectation is.
We want you to, Susan, we want you to be able to understand it.
Are you, just so I'm clear, are you specifically asking about like, okay, step one? Like,
no, I'm talking about when you were talking about camel and the build up for that. And this was, you do this because it opens up your hips, and you do this and then it's a chest opener. And then you kind of open everything up. But the muscle groups and all that other stuff you were talking about, like total foreign language to me.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
No.
Okay.
Right now, like we're going to go into the anatomy of it. We're going to be breaking down and then dissecting the myofascial lines. You're going to be looking at all of it. It'll give you a good sense of it all. We're very realistic. What you all signed up for in this is for us to give you this big picture understanding of what yoga really is, and then how to teach it, and then to dive into and dissect the sequencing of it, because that's what you've signed up for is to understand the sequencing of it and the myofascial lines. We don't require you to know every single myofascial line. We want you to understand that there is a process by which we move the body. And if you follow the sequence that we give you and you understand it on that level and you just follow it, like when John and I first went to teach training, we had zero idea about this. None at all. Like no concept of myofascial lines, no concept. We didn't even know. We left, this is the honest truth. This is after teacher training. We left teacher training and I had no idea why I did what I did when I did it in a class. I simply, for 2 years plus actually, regurgitated just the same sequence that I taught because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I wouldn't know why I would change it. And so the reality is you're going to have such a good foundation of understanding why you do what you do. And if you follow it and you just commit to it, what'll happen? You'll just keep digging the well. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get what they were saying, but that back bending is hip extension and spine extension. So, and then I go back into the class composition principles. Oh, simple to complex. I'm going to isolate hip extension. I'm going to isolate spine extension, and then I'm going to put it together. Like that stuff like the awareness will dawn, and you're getting it right now, but we're not requiring you to like, okay, go explain it. We want you to know and understand the class composition principles because that's like the bigger picture of the whole organization of sequencing. And we want you to know what they are and to have a good description of each. But nothing to the degree, like when John's talking about it, I mean, he's been studying this shit for like over years, you know, like,
Right.
So.
Okay. I appreciate that. So I can put the anatomy book away and just use the other books I have.
Yeah. For right now, don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. Don't worry about learning all the muscles or anything like that. What I want you to, what we want, and Chris kind of said it too, I won't spend a whole lot of time beating it up, but what we want is you guys to feel comfortable enough to understand that there is a reason you do what you do when you do it. If you teach a class, one of the biggest things is if I teach a class and I come out of the class and somebody comes out and says, hey, John, why'd you do this? I can tell them why. Why did you do this pose here and instead of doing it here? I can tell them why, right? And that's what we want you guys to have, that understanding that if you go out and start teaching, you know exactly why you did what you did and when you did it. If somebody asks, hey, what did you do a bunch of, like, why do we do back bending right here? Like, oh, because of X, Y, and Z, right? Because it was a build-up and blah, 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 and the steps the steps work with each other to sequentially open up the body, going from simple to complex, and blah, 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 all that stuff. We want you guys to have that understanding so that you can be able to begin to explain it. And you will, and by the end of this, you'll start to see it, because we're just literally, because we've laid the foundation and we're just teaching the same thing to you guys over and over and over again. We're just going to, and you guys right now, you have the foundation. You're just going to hear us say the same stuff again and again and again and again.
And then a light bulb's going to go off in one area, and then a light bulb's going to go off in another area, and then a light bulb's going to go off in another area. John and I were just talking about this with what we're teaching and how we keep diving deeper into it. And all of a sudden we had like 3 light bulbs in the last week. And this is shit that we've been teaching for a long time. And all of a sudden, like an awareness, a connection that we had never seen before was made. This is the power of digging one well really, really deep. And so we've already dug the well. Every time we're just reiterating with each iteration. Think of it as like we're just digging a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper.
But you guys know this to be true in your own superpowers. You know, I'm sure like Elizabeth, with your work as a doctor, you learned a foundation, but then all of a sudden, as you get into the practicality of it, you started working with people. All of a sudden, these deeper levels of insight happen, and a deeper level of insight happen. And you guys all know this to be true with the work that you've done forever. You get deeper and deeper levels of insight, and you're like, whoa, oh, this is why it connects this way. This is why it makes sense. This is why, oh, I need to shift this here and shift this over here, because that is a better way of approaching it. So it happens with whatever you decide to devote yourself to. You dig the well really deep, and you start to have more and more insights in it, right? Does that make sense? I'll take your silence as a yes.
They're all muted, dude. They can't hear you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Product of public school and lots of college, you got to know what the expectation is at the end.
No, totally.
You're not alone.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Are there any questions on the we'll come up with a better title than quizzes. The check-in. Any questions on the check-in to see where we are with everything on the quiz? You guys good with it all?
Marianne, just to answer your question in step 5, we're recruiting the deep front line and strengthening the superficial back line. So it's both. Deep front line recruiting, that's the main area, but we're also strengthening the superficial back line as well. Because when we look at core, the core isn't just here, the core is here, right? And even myofascially, the inner thighs, the inner calves, the inner arches of the feet. Cool.
Oh, wait. Okay, so while step 2, is it just spiral line or is it spiral, superficial front, superficial back, lateral, and front?
What we're looking for is spiral line.
Okay.
Which doesn't, but think about what you've done up to that point. We've worked all the arm lines, we've worked the functional lines, like they're already kind of warm. We've worked superficial front, superficial back, lateral. You're still working through the process. I mean, think up dog and down dog, superficial front, superficial back. But what we're really, so it's not like you're done, you're not doing it anymore, but now you're adding spiral line to it. That's when you start introducing twists.
As long as it supports the pinnacle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in step 2, we've worked the sleeve of the body in step 1. In step 2, we introduced the spiral line, but we're still, like Chris said, we're still hitting superficial front, superficial back, depending on the pose. But as long as it supports the spiral line and the pinnacle for that pose. So with that, using that as an example in step 3, I could work twisting poses in step 3 as long as they supported the pinnacle of the pose and potentially the deep front line. But does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So for instance, here's an example. In step 3, sometimes you've seen Chris or myself do like a dancing Shiva, right? So that's a balancing pose, but it has a twist in it. Chris will try to pull it off without killing himself. All right, so that's dancing Shiva, right? That's a twist. We're working spiral line, but if I'm doing it in step 3, it has to serve the pinnacle. And how that serves the pinnacle is it's a balancing pose. Right, so I'm getting that balancing experience. I'm using a part of the myofascial lines that I've already done in the previous step, which is totally fine as long as the pose supports my pinnacle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Cool. So what I wouldn't want to do is a throwaway pose. And a throwaway pose is a pose that doesn't support my pinnacle, right? That like if you did a twist, some type of twist in step 3 that didn't support the pinnacle, basically. So that would be kind of a throwaway pose. We want to try to avoid those.
So Kelly, the page in the manual is, if you're looking at this, is going to be where it's page 3 to get the class composition principles. And to find the vinyasa class breakdown, that's in your notes. We gave that to you we projected it on the whiteboard-ish, whatever, the projector screen. And then you wrote it in your notes. It is in the vinyasa, it is in that same class composition principles section on page 16, but it's embedded in the descriptions of each. Yeah, it's more in paragraph form. The easier way to find it is where we gave you those notes, and we definitely highlighted, said, listen, this is going to be information you'll want to know. Earmark it, do whatever you have to do to find it. And Charmaine, actually, she shared her screen and showed the notes that she found, which was exactly what we were looking for.
And Kelly, if you need that again, I can send you a copy of it. We have a PDF of it somewhere. I can shoot it to you if you just let me know if you need it.
And so while we're there,
for that matter,
let's turn to class composition section of the manual and turn it to page 20. We'll read it, so if you don't want to get it, it's all good. But we're gonna read this, and then we're gonna break down step 7. And we're gonna do the whole posture tutorial thing. Cool. All right. So 7th step. We are now in the finishing postures and closing. So the pinnacle pose of this step is Shavasana. For the students to feel comfortable in this pose, the hamstrings, the low back, and hips should be open and relaxed. The closing is accomplished by ending the class in an intentional way with the aim of turning inward, moving into stillness, and experiencing peace. The mind is now in the alpha state and is open to new perspectives and realities. The rigidly held belief of separation has been softened. A quote or short reading, reflecting back on the theme of the class, is an effective way to facilitate their experience of connection. Your ability to find stillness within yourself is the key to help others connect to that stillness within themselves. And then we're going to go over a pigeon, seated, revolved hand to foot pose, stretching pose, recline twist, happy baby, reclining bound angle, inner spiral, and shavasana. Some poses, so when what we're clinicking is not just in the 60, but it's also in the 75 and the 90-minute class, or just the 90-minute class. So there's some extra poses in the longer classes that we have in the script in your manual. And so if you're like, I've never seen that pose, that's why, because it's in that sequence. So the way to look at this in step 7 is to first look at what happened in step 6. What happened in step 6 was backbending. If you look at backbending, actually, let's open this up. Slow it up. Woo. That would not be good. We're going to back it up so we can see. Got it there. Yeah, I think so. We'll see. All right, can everyone see pretty effectively? Everyone's good? Okay, cool. So if you look at, wheel would actually be an even better example of it, but I'm not going to ask John to just jump in the wheel, but you guys get the picture of it. Just do it again. Okay. Yeah, get wheel done then. Never mind. He was getting all cocky, like, yeah, I can do a wheel, no big deal. So I called him out, and he was like, sorry, I'm not doing it.
Go to do camel and realize, there's no way I can do that.
So what I want you to notice is knees bent, right? Which means there's a shortening of the hamstrings, spinal extension, shortening of the back body, the whole posterior chain. So think about this contracting and shortening. And what we want to do is reverse that in step 7. That's the gist of why we do what we do in step 7. It's because what happened in step 6 is this deep back bending, spinal extension, hip extension. Typically in most poses, there's some shortening of the hamstrings and there's an engaging. So we want to relax and soften and open those areas. That's why when you see in that, when you're reading class composition, we want to open the hamstrings, we want to open the low back, and we want to, hips, hamstrings, and low back. So that's why you see the poses that you do. If anyone asks you, why do I do the poses that I do? And at the end, it's because we're preparing for Shavasana. If you were to do wheel and then immediately lie down in Shavasana, you would feel like something's not right. And what was not right is that we haven't released and lengthened what you can collectively term the posterior chain of the body so that we feel successful in Shavasana. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Okay, cool. All right, so what we start with is pigeon. And remember, what we try to follow when we're doing these clinics is we do a basic body position. How do you modify it? How do you deepen? What does the deepest expression look like? Cool. So John's going to lift the heel, sweep the right leg high, bend the knee, and place the knee forward and off to the right. The basic body position is that lead leg is bent, the left leg is extended, and he's up on his hands. Now, that's the basic body position. If you want to know how to modify it, there's an entirely different pose you can do for anybody who has issues with that lead leg. And so the biggest modification is actually a whole different pose, which is foot to knee pose, right? And why? Because you're getting the same opening, it's the same action here, but there's no weight of the body down. Some people just have either old knee issues, sensitive knees, just like they don't do the movement. And sometimes it's not the knees, it's the hip. Because what's happening in this movement in figure 4 and in pigeon is an external rotation of this femur bone. That's a hip movement. That's a hip joint movement. If that is restricted by tightness, so tension, like muscular tension, soft tissue tension, or compression, meaning you've worked through all the soft tissue tension and now what's left is literally the bone pressing in to another bone, and it's really the ball and socket joints like this, right? What ends up happening is it rotates around. You'll take it to an external rotation where the neck of the femur bone bumps into the acetabulum. It's the rim. The acetabulum is where it's like the socket where that fits in. Anyway, the point is, regardless of tension compression, what's going to happen is if you take that to its range of motion and you pass it, you're going to feel it in the knee. It's way easier to moderate the amount of effort in this pose than it is in pigeon because you have body weight and gravity pushing you down. So first modification is do this. Second modification, John, get back in the pigeon.
Sure, that's real fast because this is a modification for this.
Yeah. So I'll just break this down for a second. So this is the most modified version of your foot to knee pose, right? So what you're doing is flexing these toes back. So it's dorsiflexion of the ankle. And then the right thigh is being pushed that way. That motion of that thigh being pushed that way is what increases the torque of that rotation in the upper thigh, the femur bone. Cool? Next level here is to bring that left calf onto a tabletop and weave the hands behind this left hamstring. Now you have leverage of pulling that leg towards you as that elbow presses the opposite leg away from you. Same thing, you're just increasing the lever to get a deeper rotation in that upper thigh bone. And that's basically it. Then it's just simply just a matter of how much push and pull you want to work. Yeah, you can shift to that grip. It doesn't, I mean, is it deeper, is it not deeper? I don't know, you could argue that, but anyway, I'll just leave it there. So let's turn around and go into pigeon. So right leg high, bend the knee. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so left leg high. So the most modified is this knee being deeply bent. So the calf and the hamstring are closer together. So a way of deepening, so that's the most modified. Next level, I'll switch your legs out for a second, is some people, even with the knee super deeply bent, they're going to need support for the knee by elevating the floor and bringing a block. So that when the floor elevates and the hip lands on the block, now, because the hip is now grounded, this knee will have less pressure in it. Make sense? Cool.
So you're literally bringing the floor up to their hip, right? Because my hips are supported, it takes the pressure off the knee like this.
Cool. So switch your legs. Now, to move deeper, what's going to happen is John's going to roll all the way onto his left hip. That takes all the weight out of this knee. Then he can slide the shin forward. That has no pressure on the knee because all the weight's in the hip. Pigeon, at the deepest level, that knee is at a 90-degree angle. So now, switch your legs and do that for a second. Because what I want to show you is if John did that, over time he would damage his knee. And this is why. So he's going to roll to his right hip. He's going to angle that and be like, oh, I want to go really deep today. I'm going to put my knee in a 90-degree angle. Great job, John. Now roll your left hip down and look at the elevation that's happening there. His knee isn't even on the ground. His hip isn't even on the ground. Where is all that pressure going? Into the knee itself. Lateral movement is not a movement that the knee appreciates. Why is it doing that? Because he has increased the lever by doing that to a degree that his femur bone does not have the ability to rotate. And I know for him, because it's the same for me and we've been practicing long enough, it's not a tension thing. He's not tight anymore. He has reached a point where now it is literally a bone-on-bone position where he just can't move around it. So, switch your legs out again, sorry. This is super important because when we do hip opening, a lot of people complain about knee stuff, and typically the hip is the culprit because it's not moving from tension or compression, which we're going to get into, but the knee is what feels it. So if he went there and you saw the reality of what his body would look like, he would then have to roll the hip back down and then bend the knee more. That decreases the torque and the lever that's happening here and decreases the amount that the femur bone is rotating. So now as he rolls the hip down, that right hip may be lifting a little, but it's manageable for him. I don't know, is it manageable?
That's where it should be.
So that's where he should be.
And if not, and if you want to get the subtleties of it, I do the same exact thing. I sit back into the hip to protect the knee. I make a little adjustment. And then as I draw this right hip down, I pay attention to the knee. And if I feel too much torque or pain in the knee, I know I just went too far. Before I push it too hard, I'll back off. I'll make a subtle adjustment, just bring the shin back at a 1/2 inch or however, whatever degree, and then try again. And then when I feel that moment of, okay, that's where I need to be, I don't feel pressure in the knee, I don't feel pain in the knee, I feel the opening in the hip, now I'm in a good position. So then I can slowly monitor and feel exactly where I need to be in the vision.
Questions? I know there's something in the chat, hold on. Is that just for people who have the knee lift? Kelly, unmute yourself and ask the question because I'm not exactly sure I follow.
It's kind of like a late now, but I was asking when you were talking about how John had his knee like really lifted off the ground when his shin was parallel. Are you saying like don't like it shouldn't be parallel ever, or it just shouldn't be if your knee lifts? Because like when I do it, everything's flat on the ground.
Yeah.
So like it's not the goal. Like you don't want it to be, even if it's not lifted.
No, it's a great point. No, so the deepest expression for people that have the range of motion in the hip is to have that shin parallel to the front of the mat. As long as your knee is grounded and your hip is pretty grounded, it may be a little lifted, and you're not feeling it as acute pressure or pain in the knee. So you're fine. I'm not saying don't do the 90 degree. I'm saying don't do the 90 degree if you look like John looked.
Right. Okay.
If the knee was elevated, or if you're feeling acute pressure in the knee or pain in the knee or the hip. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I could be completely open, like there's no muscular tension at all. My soft tissue is open enough, and I still may not have the range of motion because of compression, because of the skeletal structure. I still may not be able to get to this point. So this, if my range of motion is such, meaning my skeletal structure is such that it's just soft tissue restriction, I can work through it and eventually get to this point, potentially. But if I'm hitting compression here, there's nothing I'm going to do to make it better, and I'm going to feel all the pressure and the pain here. So, for me personally, I don't have range of motion in my skeletal structure to get to this point. I need to stay back so I don't have as deep of a rotation in this upper leg bone, the femur, right? So that I don't start to compress. Or if I do, it's very light. I think it's not going to affect my knee at all. Because otherwise, guys, it'll be just like Chris showed you with me. My hip will be up, and in order to get my hip squared, my knee will be up. And if I force this, what I'm doing is just forcing incongruent pressure on the knee, which is eventually going to injure me.
It's called a joint reaction force, if you want to know the anatomical term for it. Melody, you're gonna feel it in the piriformis most likely, and part of the hip flexor as well.
So
on the other,
hip rotators.
Yeah, hip rotators on one side. You'll probably feel it in part of the flexors on the other side as well. Maybe the quad, the rectus femoris a little bit. It depends on the person. So both are in play. You want to show Roger?
Yeah, we should have.
And if you need to talk, there was someone who was unmuted, and there was some feedback coming back. So I muted everyone. So if you have a question, just unmute yourself and fire away. Okay. So we didn't show it. So once you have the legs positioned, then he'll walk his hands forward and drop his forearms down. Then he can walk his hands more forward. And this is a matter of the degree to which you want to lower down. Put your forehead on a block, not. Questions? Any other questions about that? Nothing in the chat. So next level, just because we're here, let's look at it, is to work what's called Raja Kapotasana, or king, call it queen pigeon, because I don't care about names. But Raja Kapotasana is the formal Sanskrit name. So royal pigeon. So when he's moving into it, there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. His left hand on this side will slide forward to balance and stabilize himself. Then the right knee is going to bend, the right hand reaches back to catch the foot. Once you do this, I cannot emphasize enough, we do it every single time we talk, we teach in class, scissoring the knees this way, scissoring the inner thighs this way. And when you do that, you get a lift of the pelvic floor, you get support for the low back. There it is. Now, what he can do is kick into the hand, and then the left arm lifts. This is the basic variation of royal pigeon, queen pigeon. The next level is to do mermaid variations, which John, he actually taught this today in class. Foot goes to the inner elbow, because now it frees up the hand, and he can clasp the hands in front, or he can reach behind and clasp the hands. In these variations, the shoulders will not be square, the hips will not be square. Once he's able to, and it's crazy mega challenging, we got a strap for him. Okay, he's going to switch sides so he's not out of balance. You take it real quick. Okay, so for Raja, once I set up, I want to have my strap handy or hand top handy, so I have the loop, right? And I can actually set it on there before. And I'll sit in the hip, and then just grab the foot. And then once I'm set, I can come back in the position. And then it's the same thing. I'm going to set my right hand in the center of the mat. I'll bend the back knee. And now I have the strap. And now it's just a matter of, like Chris said, scissoring the knees towards each other to get stable. And then choking up on the strap to see exactly where I am. Notice what happens for the shoulder. The elbow comes in. It goes in and then up. In and then up. And that's how you work the... Yeah, so you'll be able to see it in just a second. So this is the best visual here. Elbow comes in and then forward and up. Then he scissors knees, inner thighs, hugs everything to center, and then the other hand reaches up. Remember, stabilize the low back from the power of the legs before. And then it's just a matter of he's just going to slowly start choking up to get the foot closer, hands closer to the foot. Whether it happens or not, who cares? Elbows come in like this, and then the heart lifts, the gaze goes up. Final expression, which you won't see John do, is the hands are to the foot and the foot is to the head. It's because he's not trying hard enough. If he were to just try harder, he would get there. No, what we'll talk about in anatomy is not just tension compression, but also proportion. Sometimes your body will just never do things that you see other people doing, not because you're somehow deficient in strength or flexibility, but just that your arms aren't long enough, your legs aren't long enough.
Or maybe they're longer than your torso.
Yeah. That's why you hear us harping on who cares about what the pose looks like. Get into the feeling of it and let the progression happen over time without getting lost in the pose, because there's just the reality of it is that your body's made so uniquely, certain poses are never going to be the fullest expression for you. Okay, cool. Yeah, try harder, John. T-Rex arms, exactly right. Is he kicking his foot back the whole time for that pose? Back in mermaid pose. Yeah, Allison, so you aren't, it depends on the variation you're taking. When you're working the beginning level, there is the kick back so that the other arm can lift. When you work the mermaid variation, same thing. You're kicking to stabilize and keep yourself upright. When you decide to get the foot, now it changes. You're not going to be kicking. Well, it's kind of both, honestly. You're kicking to keep the tension in the strap or the tension of the hands to the foot, but then you also have to allow the knee to flex so the foot can come to the head. So at a certain point, like in here, John has to maintain the pressure of the strap on the foot, but he also wants to start pulling the strap towards you. So once you get the foot, it's a pull, not a kick. You transition it because then the end result is foot to the head.
So initially, so where Chris is going with this is initially, once I get that, whether I catch the foot with my hand like this, and pull it in or use a strap, elbow comes in and then spins up. I'm not kicking right now. I'm bending the knee to get that foot as close to me as possible so that I can get my hands in position. Once my hands are in position, then I can start to kick to lift the heart and work that aspect.
So the kick happens, that helps to accentuate the back bend, spinal extension, but he then also wants to pull the foot towards him to work more knee flexion to get the foot to the head. Allison, does that make sense? So it's both. It just depends on how much of one you need to stay stable as you work the deeper expression of the foot going to the back of the head. I think that was it. Pigeon's a big one. It takes us a little time to get through it.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
It might not be quick, I don't know. But it has to do with balance, because I know you say a lot, like maybe it feels different on this side than it did on your last side. And it's because of like, we're right-handed, whatever, all those different things. Mm-hmm. So I've been wondering if there's ever a point where, so like I've got this like lower right side of my back injury. I don't think it'll ever go away. And so for Pigeon, I can barely stay upright for that. But on my left side, I can like go much, much further. Is there a point where like, say my good side, you should like do less on your good side in order to stay more balanced because your right side just cannot do that? Does that make sense?
It does.
It's big. That's big in the yoga world. You'll hear all types of stuff with it. Where we land is really both work the uniqueness of the sides. Unless you are perfectly balanced, which is impossible, right? And literally, you would have to use your right hand and your left hand to write, to open doorknobs, to drink, to get really balanced. But because we favor one side, we're always going to have an imbalance. And so the work is within every pose, within every experience, work with what you're feeling in that moment on that side. Because we're always going to be imbalanced, but what we have to work with is, like, you don't not go deep in one side because the soft tissue is open enough and you want to express that and keep it open, but maybe the other side's tighter, right? And so you're like, I'm going to back off on this side, somehow make it tighter or something to match the other side. Don't worry about that.
Even if there's an injury and it's like a very dramatic difference in the side, you should still like kind of go as hard as you can on both sides.
I wouldn't say as hard as you can.
Not as hard as you, but as best as you can. I don't know.
Like, get into the uniqueness of what you're experiencing in the musculature of your body in the moment is what I'm saying, right? So if you have an injury on one side, you have to do less. You have to favor it. You have to take it to the point that you're not exasperating the injury, that you're not hurting yourself. And on the other side, if you don't feel any restriction, you don't feel any pain, then express that side as you need to, right? And they may look dramatically different. And they will for most of us simply because we're imbalanced because we favor one side versus the other, with right-handed or left-handed, or it could be an injury. With the injury, you're eventually going to heal yourself from the injury, right? Eventually get to the other side of the injury and it will change. But we want you to work. Don't think about the body in the absolute balance of it. Think about it in its uniqueness of what you're dealing with in the soft tissue, in the musculature of the body per side, per moment, per pose, basically.
Okay.
And the one caveat I would say is, like, and so said in a little different way, don't hold your left side back because of what your right side can't do. Explore it, see how it feels. Now, over time, if you're like, I'm going deeper in the left side, and all of a sudden you feel your right side starting to seize up and it's now becoming adversely effective, then you know you've reached a limit, back off on that side. But it doesn't make sense over the long term, if you look at your totality of your yoga practice, to completely limit the expression of one side because of a limitation of the other side. Still take the right side into a degree that feels good. Don't exacerbate the injury. But then if it feels good on the left side, explore it and see how it feels. And always with an eye on, okay, it feels good now, but what about tomorrow? And then what about tomorrow? Like when you're there, what about now? What about now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we're typically on the opposite side of what most people would answer that as. Because most people are like, no, just hold it. So you want symmetrical, you want balance. And we're like, this bullshit. You're not balanced. We're never.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Literally, when we're babies, we're asymmetrical. The first thing babies do once they're on, I don't know if you ever see, is this.
Yeah.
And then they go here. And then all of a sudden, this turns in to crawling. We're immediately going asymmetrical, right and left, right and left. And then we choose a side, and we're now forever in balance because we've chosen a side. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, let's get real with it. Like, so let yourself explore one side. Don't worry about the other. Just don't injure yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're not doing that, then you're gonna, you're just allowing an expression of imbalance to happen. So that's the idea.
Okay.
Does that make sense, everybody?
Good question.
Yeah, because it's really, it brings up a much larger point. Everyone good with that? Cool, sweet, thank you. All right, let's do speak of you. Spotlight this. Okay, sweet. All right, that was pigeon. It only took us an hour. We have 12 more poses to go through. Okay, let's do seated revolve hand to foot pose. So do you want to go through the sequence? Right, left, then we go back, and then we do a jump through? Or just isolate.
I think we've done a jump through already. I think we're
Okay.
good to cover. We should probably just show the sequence. We don't have to cover that. Let's just show the sequence, I guess.
Okay. Because from there, let me just double. I want to pigeon right side, and here yeah. So we have pigeon right side, we have pigeon left side. We press back to down dog, and then we do a jump through. From your jump through, that's our way to come to our seat. There's other little ways of sequencing here and there that we will highlight later. But once you're seated, in your sequence, we do stretching pose, but we're gonna do that in just a second. This seated revolved hand to foot pose is what's next, and you're probably like, what is that? If you look in the 90-minute sequence, you will see that. I think it's 90 or 75. No, it's 90, and it's in the 90. I think we can say it's 75. Okay, so what John's gonna do, this is kind of like a seated dancing Shiva pose. He's gonna sweep the arms high, he's gonna cross over at the forearms, he's gonna reach forward and catch the outer edges of the feet. Right, so the right hand is to the left foot and the left hand is to the right foot. So now he's gonna let's keep the left hand where it is and place the right hand back behind. Then he's gonna lift that right leg up.
Just so the spine's vertical.
Right, the hand staying there is a nice support system for the spine. Right, so just looking at this, what are we working? Hamstring flexibility. But what are we also doing? As he lifts, he rotates. We're working the twist. So think about what we're doing. Again, this is why we reiterate it. Why do we start with what is the purpose of the sequence? It's to release the hips, the hamstrings, and the low back. And how do we release the low back? We do it in twisting. And we'll do it again in a moment. But because this is upright, it's slightly more of a strengthening, engaging spiral that's happening. So it's not this full, total relaxation of the low back. But anyway, my point is, so you start looking at the poses, and I don't care about the pose. I care about what the pose is doing for the body, because we're focusing on the body, not poses. That frees you, because then you can find any pose, anywhere, in any style, in a magazine, anywhere, and you can oh, that's where this is gonna fit anatomically to harmonize the body. Cool. So, sorry, I was in soapbox. I'm jumping off. Right hand lowers, and then if you have the strength of the core, then the right arm can extend back. This is basically dancing Shiva. Think about this leg standing up. Remember I just showed you dancing Shiva? It's the same thing. Now, that was in 2 or 3, and this is in 7, because the intention's different. Now, it's to open up the hamstring and to start working the spiral, the rotation. Spine straight. What you'll notice a lot, so let me show modification. This knee bends. Why does that knee bend? Because we're trying to isolate the hamstring. If the leg straightens and the spine flexes, it rounds, you're taking the pull into the upper portion of the back line. We're gonna get that done through the rotation later, but right now what we're focusing on is the hamstring. So bend the knee to modify to keep the spine straight. Over time, the hamstring opens enough so the leg straightens, and you have enough stabilization of the core to support a nice straight spine, the arm extends. And then what we end up teaching from there is we'll rotate the palm up and catch the other side of the foot, and then he'll pull back and lift the heart. As he pulls back, he's shortening the angle, the flexion, right? And that's going to deepen the opening of the hamstring. And then he'll lower down, switch it out just for balance purposes. Right hand to the edge of the left foot, left hand back behind you, lift the left leg up, and then rotate. And then he'll come out, pull back, lift up, and then lower down. Questions about seated revolve hand to foot pose or seated dancing Shiva? Okay, cool. So stretching pose, very similar to what we just described, but now he's just gonna, let me go on this side. So he's gonna reach the arms overhead and reach forward. The beginning grip is a toe lock. It's this, middle and index finger around the big toe. Why? Because it's the longest grip. It's gonna give people the easiest chance of getting the hands to the feet. So first thing, that's the basic body position, hands to feet, spine straight. How do you modify? Exactly how I just said, you bend the knees. Bend the knees, remember just like in down dog, you bend the knees and that breaks the superficial back line, right? Which means it releases pressure off the hamstrings. It allows the spine to straighten out because it releases pressure off the entire upper portion of the superficial back line. Everyone following me with that? Like this is so commonality. We're focusing on the hamstrings. Down dog, focus on the hamstrings. How do you relax that if you need to? You bend the knees. So you start by bending the knees, and then over time, patiently, you work the legs straighter. Once the legs straighten, that's when you activate the feet. The shins, the thighs are strong on the front part of the body. And then you can start using the arm strength to pull. Now you can keep the toe lock, but to move deeper, depending, catch the tops of the feet or catch the outer edges of the feet.
And you can see, guys, see the difference in the angle of my spine? Here's a toe lock, and then look at my spine, how much more I reach once I shift my grip to the tops of the feet or to the edges, right? It requires me to have more flexibility. So the toe lock is the longest grip, an easier grip, and then I can shift it to the tops of the feet or the edges of the feet. Once my legs are straight,
once his legs are straight, then he pulls, he uses his arm strength to flex more at the hips, the trunk. This is what I want you to notice. What happens at a certain point of flexibility for all of you when you've reached through, like, and worked through all of the tension that's all been released. You've done yoga consistently over time, and you're like, whoa, I'm getting more open, more open. What will happen is that you'll just, like, again, this is a compressive thing. It's not in a negative way. You just, like, the stomach and the femur bones, like, this just, they sandwich together. It's just what happens. So at that point, John shouldn't limit himself by going down because of this rounding. This rounding is going to happen. It's going to happen for some of you simply because you're so flexible that your stomach can't go anywhere because the thighs are there, because of the nature of the position. So don't fight yourself. If your spine is rounding, especially the lumbar and like the lower portion of the thoracic right through here, it's okay because of the nature of how deep you're going. Because eventually, if it feels open enough, the chest will go to the thighs, right? So stomach to thighs, chest towards the knees, and then he lets the head lower all the way down. Notice there is some flexion here. There is some rounding. And it may be because John's not so super warm, but it's also simply because he's so flexible that his stomach can't do anything different. You want to see the test. If he were to let his legs open up, if he were to abduct, abduct the thighs, now his thighs aren't in the way anymore. And all he's done is created space. You see the difference? His low back is not as rounded, and because his body can go lower simply because of the legs opening up. My whole point is with stretching pose, don't be so anal retentive if you're open and you're strong and you're way more flexible of a rounding happening here, because it's just the nature of the pose where the thighs are in the way and you can't go any deeper.
And just to add to this, if you wanted to add some type of rounding spine pose, you can open up the muscles of the upper part of the superficial back line too. And you'll see this when we start to break down the stability class and the YTT class, that we have spine rounding poses in 7 for the same purpose. We're opening up that posterior chain of the superficial back line of the body.
Which is important because think about camel and the amount of spinal extension, right? So we neutralize and then we allow some flexion to open up. Why? So that we feel successful in Shavasana.
Stretching pose, anything?
Stretching pose, questions about stretching pose? What a good cue for the class. So the question is, would a good cue for the class be if they feel the belly touch their thighs, it is okay to allow for some bending of the back? Yeah, it could be. I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that. I would.
Tell me you want to look out for that.
Yeah. What I would look out for is I would then follow that up like, but if your stomach isn't close to your thighs at all and you're rounding, lift, roll the shoulders back, press the heart forward, and then hinge. Because 90, honestly, probably even more % of your people are going to be at a limited range of motion, limited flexibility. I probably wouldn't throw that cue in, and I would just go and help somebody either verbally to them specifically and say, hey, just go ahead and let your stomach, like let your body go down lower, you're open enough. But that would be a judgment call based on the people in your class and who you're seeing. But yeah, that's not a wrong cue at all. We've been at it for about a little over an hour and a half. Does everyone need a break? We want to take a little moment just to like 1 function, 2 function break. Okay, I'll put the timer on. We'll give 3 minutes. 3 minutes good? Okay, 3 minutes. Sweet. All right. Did you guys hear that god-awful sound that the egg timer just beeped?
Good.
Okay, good. I was wondering how it was going to sound, so I stopped sharing real quick, and I was just hoping, because it was like only dogs should be able to hear that type sound. It was horrible. Okay.
We all back?
All right, I believe so. Everyone's back, everyone's good, ready to roll? Sweet. Okay, this shouldn't take too much longer. So once you go stretch and pose, the arms sweep high, they go forward, and he'll slowly recline all the way back. Once he's all the way back, recline twist is next. That's what we're working towards. So he's gonna bend the right knee and catch the shin, give the knee a squeeze. This is a nice little release here. There. And then he'll plant the foot, move the hips up and over, and then he'll guide the knee across. Now, with recline twist, all twisting is all we're doing. So if you look at the shoulders, like this is the shoulders and this is the hips, all we're doing, all a twist is keeping one constant as you rotate the other, right? So you can keep the hips constant and square and rotate the shoulders, or you can keep the shoulders constant and rotate the hips. What we're doing here, so as far as like, that's a twist, it's just arbitrary, that's what we're doing. But here, because we're reclined and because we're trying to support the low back as much as possible, what we suggest and the way we teach it is keep the shoulders in position and then adjust the movement of the hips. That's kind of what recline twist is designed to do, but there's other variations, and actually I think John taught it today, where you allow the shoulders to move and you then work back into it. We typically do that in longer classes, like 90 minutes, because you get skill level of people that's higher. But anyway, our point here is that because the shoulders stay flat and square and he's moving the hips, he can more, on a more subtle level, work the knee in a position, let's go to the other side real quick, that is best for the low back. All that to say, all the twist is the orientation of hips to shoulders, and what we're doing here is keeping the shoulders grounded and letting him adjust the knee higher to come out of the twist or lower to come into the twist. Higher or lower, and that's all that's happening in a twist. In recline twist, what we're doing is we're keeping the shoulders steady and then allowing the knee to adjust. So we had a student come up and he was like, why do you guys always do it that way? Because, you know, what I learned was to throw the knee, I think he actually said throw the knee, all the way down and let the shoulder lift, and then to fling the arm back to come into the twist. And what that ends up doing is, like, I don't have as much control over my body through the upper torso, through the shoulders, because it's elevated. And I may be bringing the twist to a degree into the low back that doesn't feel right. But if that's the way you taught it, all of a sudden you'd be like, well, how do I adjust in and out of that? I have less control. That's the reason why we do it this way. That we're always big on telling you why. This is why. If I keep my shoulders level, I have way more control over what the low back is doing in terms of twist with the control of my legs.
And I can get even more control, guys. You see my foot? If I place my foot on my leg, then my leg carries the weight of the foot, and this leg becomes lighter and allows me to have more control here, right? So I'm not carrying the weight of the foot. If I want to carry the weight of the foot, I can let it hover, and that makes this leg heavier, and then I can work with a little more weight, or I can touch the foot down to the floor and support the foot on the floor instead with the angle of the lower leg, and allow myself to have more support here. There are variations where you can take the leg all the way out. Obviously, if my leg is extended, I end up touching the foot down. It's hard to see that. I end up touching the foot down sooner, so it's actually hard to go a little bit to actually take this deeper. If I bend the knee, there's more space here, and I can take it lower than I could if I extended the foot. But there are variations of that. So modify, place your foot on your thigh, work here. That carries the weight of the foot. If If you want to deepen, let the foot hover or touch it down. You can kind of lift and go, right? Touch it down or lift and let it go here. And then you can monitor that way. So just the progression. Cool.
That's recline twist. So can you face this way? Like so your head pointing this way? Yeah. Last point I want to make with this is if he does the twist, do the twist, dude. I just said do the twist.
Kick your whole setup down.
I still don't understand why you're not. So check this
Because
out.
I'm long, man.
Oh my God.
I'm trying not to kick all that stuff down.
So shoulders square, right? Look at the hip. Like, so this is his twist for right now, right? This is the amount of rotation that's happening. If he then let the knee go down and let the shoulder lift, you just keep your arm where it was. He didn't change the depth of the twist. All he did was let the knee go down and let the shoulder lift. The orientation, look at it this way. The plane of the shoulders here and the plane of the hips here didn't change when he go shoulder down. It's the same angles. He just now dropped the knee, same angles. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, this just adjusted. He didn't increase or decrease. Marriage. You guys ever see that? Today we are here. He didn't decrease the wrist. Oh my God. He didn't oh, it's getting late. He didn't decrease or increase the twist. He just changed the body position, right? So don't think that one is deeper than the other because he got his knee down. Because the shoulder lifted the same degree that his knee lowered, the twist is the twist. What we're saying is it's harder to maintain this here because the shoulder's lifted and you have nothing stabilizing. The knee is now lifted, the shoulder's kind of lifted, and you're kind of hovering in this in-between space. We'd rather have one or the other anchored to adjust more effectively. My point is people misperceive a deeper twist when really all we're doing is just changing the body position, but the twist itself hasn't changed.
You'll see that in step 3 all the time when we're actually working deeper twists. Somebody may lift the hip, which will take the shoulder higher and over to make them feel like they're going deeper. But in actuality, it's exactly what Chris is saying. It's the relationship between the hip and the shoulders.
He said step 3, he meant step 2.
I meant step 2, sorry. Step.
Cool. So that's recline twist. There's a tons of different variations. Like if he's there, he can. What he taught today was to let the knee go down, let the shoulder lift, and then bend that knee, reach the hands, and then kick to work the shoulder down. Right? It's slightly more advanced. It doesn't go against what I just said because what's happening is now that I'm letting the shoulder lift, which means I'm decreasing the twist here. And then I'm just slowly working back into it from the other side. So I'm still stable to my low body and the hips as I'm letting my shoulders do the rotation. Or I can keep the shoulders down, stable through the upper body, and let the knee movement do the rotation. Either way, we want to have more control. That's kind of the point. But my point here is that I think this is called American in Paris. I don't know why it's called that, but American Paris, that leg is straight. I don't know why. You guys may know why. I don't know. Anyway, that's spine twist. Releasing the low back specifically. Questions about that? Yeah, there's a couple questions in the chat room. Hold on real quick. What a good cue. John. Yeah, John's tan lines. Yeah, I don't, Princess Bride is one of my favorites.
Princess Bride, that was it.
John, I don't know if you read it. She said, not sure why Princess Bride reference melts my heart, but I feel more bonded to you now.
It's a great movie. Classic.
Okay, so that's recline twist. Any other questions about that? Good? Okay, cool.
Okay.
Oh, where are we? Okay, so recline twist. Now we're going to talk about happy baby. Bend the knees, feet flat to the ceiling. And then he'll reach up and catch the outer edge of the right foot, outer edge of the left foot. What's happening here is that the knees maintain a 90-degree angle. If that's challenging for you, just to get the feet, the modification, or for your students, because I've seen you guys practice, not a challenge for you, you can catch behind the thighs. That's a good modification. Either way, once you catch the feet, if you're tighter through here and you catch the feet and they elevate, like John just said, low back lifts, all you have to do is press the feet back into the hands. You'll hear it a lot. There's equal pressure, feet to hands, hands to feet, so that you're getting this nice opening while maintaining a nice like stable position for the low back and the spine. Because the idea, it's not bad if the spine, if you lift and you go into like a little bit of spinal flexion to the low back, it's not injurious. But what happens is it starts decreasing the intention of the opening, which is through here. Cool. That's it. It's super simple, but it's a nice hip opener. And then what's also cool too, as far as sequencing is concerned, is that you can get a lot done really quick in your sequencing. Because here's like the hip opener. You can switch the grip to the inner edge of the feet or the toe lock and straighten the legs. Then you have your hamstring. So like in like literally like 30 seconds, you can get hips and hamstrings done. And then as far as like, as you're thinking about sequencing and variations, shorter classes when you got less time to fill it all in. Questions about Happy Baby? It's super straightforward, super simple. It's just a simple hip opener. Main point is keep the feet and the hands pressing into each other. Okay, cool. I'll say that's good. Now, reclining bound ankle pose. Soles of the feet come together, knees open up. Right now, we're working the opening through the inner hips, the inner thighs, but using gravity, allowing gravity to help us out. So there's not a lot of like effort of muscular force here. It's really more of kind of a surrendering experience, a surrendering pose. We've talked about it before. The angle at the knee will adjust the depth and the feeling of the opening in the hips. So heels closer to you may seem like it's a deeper experience, but it's not actually true. If you let the feet slide this way, changing the angle at the knee, you'll start feeling the opening deeper in the hips. Why? Because as you increase this angle, you're also increasing the lever of the opening of the rotation of the thigh, right? So the inner hips, the inner thighs open up.
Up to a 90-degree angle, right?
Yeah, obviously if the legs are straight, it's going to be, it's a law of diminishing returns. At some point, you're just moving into Shavasana and it's not opening. Oh, that's so funny. But it is. And then hand variations, it doesn't matter. Like inner thighs, over the belly, one hand over the belly, one hand over the heart. In other styles, it's called reclining gentle pose, not reclining bound angle pose. But again, just notice all the poses we're doing, they're hip openers, they're hamstring openers, and spinal rotations to release and open the back line of the body or the posterior chain. Cool? All right, so so this is what we've been adding. It's not in your script, I'm positive of it. But what we've been adding towards the ends of classes is an opportunity for people to take a variation, a modification of Shavasana by bending both knees, bringing the feet wider so that the knees drop in on each other. And what happens is with the knees bent and the hips in this slightly flexed position, the low back naturally has a lordotic curve, but when you do that, it helps to flatten it out. Some people have just more of a pronounced curvature, like a bigger sway back in the low back, and when they extend the legs down, that's a good position. Go ahead and switch to the other side. The profile. When they extend the legs down, just by the nature of how their spine, the curvature of their spine, it can add pressure and it may not feel good. Or for some people, their low back is just sensitive. So it's a really nice thing to add in. We've been doing it lately. We haven't made it official, do this every single time. But anyway, we want you to know the most up-to-date information, even if it's not in your script. So that's the modification for Shavasana. And then Shavasana is legs lower down. Oh, yeah, it's nice, right, Marianne? Oh, Amy, yeah. yeah, it's good stuff. So last bit is what we call inner spiral. And what you're doing with your legs is you're rolling the fronts of the thighs. It's really, if these are my thighs, I'm rolling from the heads of the femur bones, toes pointing in. It's this last what we call inner spiral. As you hold the inner spiral, then you can release and let the toes fall open.
It's nice to give space around the low back, give space around the sacrum and low back. So it's kind of it's a great finish pose right before Shavasana. It's a symmetrical pose too. If you were to add it and do asymmetrical pose, it's really nice to do a symmetrical pose right before Shavasana.
So you may think Shavasana, you're like, all right, that's it. I'm done. Namaste. And that's what ends up happening for when you first start teaching. You're so excited that you made it to the end. You're like, okay, lie down, Shavasana, namaste, and then you're out. Don't do that. Teach Savasana as a pose, and this is how you do it. You're in Shavasana, you have arrived. Teach them physically to relax. So let me say this in more of a framework. In Shavasana, you want to do two things. Teach physical alignment and teach mental alignment. Because we're doing that in every other pose, but it's not as obvious here. Physical alignment here is to relax everything. And you can do that in so many different ways. You can use spread the mind evenly and soften every muscle, soften every fiber of every muscle, every cell of every fiber.
And even before that, guys, even before that piece, tell them what to do with the body. So if I'm not here and rigid, right? Let your toes fall open. Let your palms kiss.
Seriously, and I joke, but I don't joke. We've had a student who just when she's a student, and then she worked for us for a while, and she's awesome, just super awesome. But she resisted rotating the palms up. She would tell you this, so it's not like I'm telling you something she wouldn't say. She's a control freak, like we all are to some degree. But her palms being down was her being like, no, I feel it, I'm grounded, I'm okay. Just this was this level of surrender that was transformational in her life. Anyway, my point is John's point. Physical positioning here is really important. So rotate the palms up, let the toes fall open, let the shoulder blades hug in to let the chest, the heart open more, right? And then what I was saying is the way in which you get their body to relax is even here. Isn't it true that you can get to Shavasana and still be holding on? Have anyone ever experienced that? All of a sudden you notice my shoulders are kind of engaged, or I carry tension in my hips, or my face is slightly clenched. Yeah, my glutes slightly clenched. Yeah. Lavender towels will be back eventually. So my point is, please teach them to relax. I don't care how you do it, just get it done. So you relax the arms, relax the legs. So my other point is you can take them through the full, relax the face, relax the jaw, relax the shoulders, the arms, the legs, the fingers. You can get super deep on that. Or you can just say, allow your entire body to be supported by the earth beneath you. It's kind of cool imagery. Once you've given them, you may be towards the end and you don't have a lot. You may just say, now soften every muscle. My point is, please add something to let them know that now is the time to completely relax physically. There's no more effort. It's actually a non-doing is what we're doing in Shavasana. Once you've done that, then it's now focus your mind to the breath. We're bringing it back to how we began, which was meditation. But now we're just kind of Shavasana-ing meditation. Yeah. Yes, it's a new word in the Urban Dictionary. So you're relaxing, you're softening, and then it's bring the mind back to the breath. And then give them time. And in that time of silence, you can then say, notice where your mind is. Bring it back to the breath. Anyone ever heard that in class and been like, how the hell did that teacher know that I was lost in thought? How do you know? How do you know? Because you meditate and you do that shit all the time. So and my point is you get 99% of the people, if you just said, focus your attention to your breath and then waited, what was it, John, 7 seconds?
the majority of people are already going to be lost in thought again. So then you just help them. You'd be that bell, that reminding bell to come back to the breath. Why is this so important? Why are we like, you maybe you would have thought like, man, Shavasana, there's going to be like a 1 second like tutorial. No. Why? Because we need to set the stage for the theme. Remember, this step is finishing postures. This is what we're up to. And closing. Closing is done in an intentional way. So we set the stage. We create the palette. We've got the body relaxed. We've got the mind focused. And now you end and you drop the mic with your quote or a reminder of the theme or some subtle story that connects to what you started at the beginning. That's what we mean by ending with intention. Set the stage physically, relax the body. Set the stage mentally, right? Your physical alignment, mental alignment. Focus your mind to the breath, be present. And then you've now set their body and their mind to be more receptive to the last bit of wisdom that you're going to drop at the end of class. That's how you teach Shavasana. That's the purpose of it. All right, there's a couple. Float. Yes, my favorite. Yeah, no doubt. From a mat is a float. Yeah, I like it. Lost in thought now. Yes, he is.
I was dreaming.
That's it. That's Shavasana. Any questions? Does it make sense? Does the setting it up make sense? Teach physically, teach mentally, then drop the wisdom. We're going to talk later today or tomorrow morning about the nature of languaging a pose. And what I just said will then just be reframed in a way you're like, oh, like we're going to speak to the form, we'll speak to energy, and we'll speak to perspective. Cool? All right, we just need a minute to regroup. So take a quick break, we'll come back, and then we're gonna have you guys, we'll break out into the rooms again, and we're gonna have you guys do a little drill to teach each other. Cool. Quick 1 minute break. I'm not even gonna put on the timer. We're just gonna get regrouped.
Hey, Chris, before we get started again, I got a question about straight leg triangle, if you got a second to talk about it.
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, cool. So I've seen this posture like cued in two different ways, and I like them both in both ways. It just depends on what I'm feeling for the day.
Yeah.
So I've seen it cued that when you got your front leg straight, you got your back leg of the triangle. The hips can either be stacked on top of each other, or the top hip socket you can kind of twist this way. And they're two different experiences. When they're stacked on top of each other, the QL gets more of a stretch and the low back gets more of a stretch, but you're limited by the bone, the femur just kind of stopping. You can't go that far. So if you twist that just a little bit this way, say, in this example, my left foot is forward. My left is forward. This is my left leg. This is my right leg. This is the back leg. If I twist this way, all of a sudden I can bend forward farther and get more of a hamstring stretch. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the straight leg triangle, on which one, like just how you cue it when you do a regular class. Do you cue people for more of a, the hip stacked on top and more of a QL stretch, or more of a hamstring experience for that triangle?
More of a QL.
Okay.
You hit the hamstring poses, but it's going to be more of a QL. So you maintain that stacked position, and then you just cue for, and you can do it out loud or just cue, do per specific person of the compression component. So, because what you'll see is when people hit that compression piece, they'll start to do this. They'll start to round the body, right? It's hard to see if you can see me rounding. So if I hit compression here and I go around it a little forward and then down, it'll look more like that, right? As opposed to staying high and stacked like this. So I get into the QL in the back, and obviously hamstring, inner thigh, and those components. So that's what we're looking at hitting for this pose.
That makes sense.
And then the hamstring piece, we'll hit it in down dog, we'll hit it in hands and feet pose and in other poses to isolate that piece.
Okay, I think that makes sense. We have so many opportunities to hit the hamstrings that makes sense to go after the QL on that one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Ben, too, I saw the video of you getting into lunge. The other thing you can do going from down dog to lunge, and this is what I do. If you look at John's hands, let me give you hold on. I got too much stuff. If you look at his hands, where are they? There's a giant finger. Right? Look at how the palm right there will lift when he lift your leg up, and then gaze forward. And then knee tight to the chest, and just lift the palm a little bit when you come up. He popped up to the fingertip. I don't even do that much. Like it literally, you just go from here to there. So check this out. You can still go around like you're doing, right? Totally fine, but you may find more success too in just letting the base of the palm lift a little bit, weight forward to the fingertips. Just that extra little bit for me is everything to get the foot straight up into position.
So what's funny is today I was feeling so tight that I needed to do both, to take the leg around and lift the palm. I was struggling today.
Yeah. And totally, Ben, if you like what you're also doing can also prep you for more advanced stuff, So you can play with it's the idea of even the simpler transitions can prep us for more advanced things. So what you're doing is also at the same time you're getting the foot forward, it's prepping you for the ability to do one-legged crows and things like that, Where, it's like the same thing. If I step back, I can bend my knees and step my foot back. Or as I start to get more skilled at this and start to feel more comfortable with it, I can keep my legs straight, plant my hands down, float my foot up, and then float it back. And that's prepping me for a press and a float in an easier experience, if that makes sense.
Cool, thanks guys.
Yeah, well, and so that, as we can, so literally, guys, kind of to that point, we can progress in the physical practice by doing the simpler experiences in a more, I want to say mindful way, but it's not that. It's more in a more, I guess, mindful, more focused way, right? Meaning my every time I step up, maybe instead I float the foot for a moment before I set it down. And then when I set my other foot up, I float it, press into my hands and work that before I set it down, like you see on the other side. And I set this foot up and I float it before I set it down. So all of a sudden you can add these little pieces, these micro movements to what your normal practice would be, and you're prepping yourself for more advanced stuff if you wanted to, you know? So it's the idea, we don't have to necessarily practice the more advanced, you should if you want to work that stuff, but you can also work it within the regular flow by just simply saying, okay, if I want to eventually do a press up and a float back, can I do it with one leg? Can I prep it in a way? Can I work that aspect of it to prep me for more advanced stuff later on if I want to do that stuff? Does that make sense?
Okay, cool. Let's do it this way. So in your manuals, it will be,
So open up your manual to Vinyasa Breakdown. Page 11. And at the top, it should say Vinyasa Transitions, 60-minute class. Everybody on the same page? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Cool. Was that a thumbs down? Are you not finding it, Courtney?
No.
Vinyasa Breakdown is the section.
Mine is on the 7th step, finishing postures and closing.
Yeah, that's where mine is too.
Vinyasa traditions, transition 60 minutes. I have on page 12.
Okay.
I just didn't turn the page. Okay.
Okay, yeah. It made it, for some reason, a little different than.
Yeah.
But so that's next page then. So either 11 or 12.
Okay, we're good.
Thanks, Courtney. And I think that was Elizabeth too. Thanks. So some of you will be on page 12. Some will be on page 11. Or maybe not. Maybe everyone's on page 12 and I just have an old manual. that could be it too. All right, so at the top of that page, it should say Vinyasa Transitions 60-minute class. So this document, guys, is specifically, it's going to help us work the transitions themselves, not the poses, but the transitions, the parts in between the poses. So what we're going to do is an exercise that works, that helps us cue the transitions. But once you get to the pose, I don't want you to worry about cueing the pose at all. It's simply working, so we're going to isolate just the transitions and not the poses. Okay? So you're literally going to teach just this document. You're going to read this document to each other, but do it in a way that you would be teaching, obviously, right? So you're going to take on the teacher role, and I'm going to start. I'm going to give you guys an example of it. Chris is going to move for a minute. So, you know what? Let me get to. I'm going to jump forward a little bit because I really want you guys to see. In the beginning, and so step one, you're gonna move to multi-joint repetitive movements. So the poses are gonna be kind of like, it's gonna blend a little bit, but I'm gonna jump forward a little bit so you can see an example of this. So that when we get to the poses, you're simply just gonna call the pose and then carry on. So let me find this real fast. Okay, let's do. Okay, so let's just take step back salutation 1. So it's in step 1. Just I'm gonna drop it down just a little bit for you guys. Okay, everyone with him? Everyone with him? So this is what it's going to look like. So stand up in front of the mat. Sweep the arms high and fold forward. Half lift. Fold. Right foot steps back. Lunge. That's all I'm going to teach for the pose. So I'm not going to get into teacher mode, like squeeze the back leg, press the heart forward and through, align the back of the neck, the rest of the spine, blah, 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 blah. None of that, right? I'm just going to say lunge. And then left foot steps back, down dog. Not cueing out down dog, just say down dog. Plank, lower to belly. Baby cobra, lower to belly. Push up to all fours, child pose. Inhale up to all fours, exhale down dog. Inhale, right leg sweeps high, right foot steps forward, lunge. Left foot steps up, fold. That's it, guys. So literally I'm just teaching the transitions, and when we get to a pose, I just call the pose. Person does the pose, and then I carry on to the transitions. So the poses, So literally, we're not going to be in the pose for but a couple seconds. You'll do the pose and then hear the next cue, cue them into the next part. Does that make sense? What we want to highlight for you guys are the transitions in this part, right? Don't worry about the poses. Obviously, we just clinicked. You have the poses. You have breakdowns of the poses and all that stuff. What we're going to work on are the transitions. And then once the pose is there, just call the pose. Person will do it, and then you'll carry on through the transition. Cool. Cool. All right, and so what we're going to do is go from the step 1, which I think is on page 12 for you guys, all the way to step 7. And what you'll notice as you get deeper into the class, it starts to go faster. The transitions are simple. You'll get into symmetrical poses where you simply call in a pose and then call in a pose and call in a pose, coming out of the pose. So in the beginning, it'll be a little bit more bulked because there are more movements. There's multi-joint repetitive movements. There's more intricate transitions from one pose to the other. But as you progress through the class, the poses, the transitions get simpler. But we want to highlight this because it's vital, right? This is we start to put the muscles on the bones, basically, right? Start to build the structure.
So if you look at it, looking at it, like the analogy of the human body is really appropriate for this type of work because, like, the bones are the poses. You got to know what pose comes when, right? Like that's the bone of the bones of this sequence. Which are the poses themselves.
Which if you just flip back one page before to page probably 10 or maybe 9, page 9, you'll see Vinyasa Poses 60-minute class. This is the document we've had you guys memorize in your homework. So literally it's what pose comes first, what pose comes second, what pose comes third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way through to 100 and whatever, right? So memorizing the poses, that's what Chris is talking about. Those are the bones. I got to know what the pose is, and I got to know where it is. What am I doing now? What am I doing now? What am I doing now? All the way through. Now, once you have the idea, okay, so now I got this memorized. I got the whole sequence memorized, pose, 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 pose. Flip the page to Vinyasa transitions. Now I'm going, what do I say in between this pose and this pose? What do I say in between this pose and this pose? What do I say to get from this pose to this pose? Does that make sense?
That is the connective tissue. Understanding how do I get from pose to pose, that's the transitions. So we break it apart. We'll talk about later about the talent code and how you chunk stuff up to learn it more effectively. And so that's what we're doing. Learn the bones, then you learn the connective tissue. We're just practicing right now as a document, just reading through the connective tissue. Cool? So what's gonna happen is we're gonna put you in these breakout rooms. You're gonna have 2 people in each room. And then one person's going to teach the other person through it, and then they're going to stop, immediately transition, other person teaches you through it, and this will be the fastest 60-minute class you've ever taught in your whole life. It should probably take maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes to make it through an entire class. Probably less, honestly. Cool? Questions?
You guys scared? Anyone all of a sudden get nervous? No, anxiety come up a little bit. What? I gotta teach somebody? No.
3 people.
Say that again.
3 people per group.
2. There may be 1 or 2. Well, there may be 1 group that has 3, but we're gonna try to just do 2 people per room, per group.
So give us 1 second. We're gonna break you into the breakout rooms. Should only take 120. See the goal, right? Right, Phil. It's only 20 to 120 minutes is all we would take.
Yeah, no worries.
You're good, Sherry. You're good. You got this. Literally, guys, you're reading this document. That's it. You're just reading it to your person. Obviously, you're taking the role of a teacher, right? You want to read it as if you were teaching. But this is, guys, this is what we have to do. We got to step up. All right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to fail. I'm going to stumble through. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to sound funny, right? Have everyone ever recorded their voice and they go back and listen to their voice? They're like, what? I sound like that? This is kind of that, right?
I'm always like, listen to that music.
Totally.
Yes, good question, Leanne. The other person does the poses while one person does the poses while the other person is teaching them by reading. Cool. We got no worries. We're all in this together. You all, like, some of you are excited, some of you are freaked out. Just lean into it. You're gonna be good to go. No worries. We're all. My point is, like, we're all like. You'll never find a more supportive group of people in the entire world, like, that are on your side and being champions of you, stumbling through and loving you anyway.
Totally.
Cool?
Cool.
All right, I'm gonna set up the breakout rooms.
Sherry, are you on 2 devices? Do you have your phone and your laptop on? Or does anybody actually? Is anyone on 2 devices at their place?
No.
Some of you can, it's fine. We just, if you are, I want you to turn off one device so that it will get you into a room with somebody.
What do you want?
Real quick, hold on. Someone asked a question. Which partner goes first? The partner with the, well, how's it gonna work? Can't touch hands.
Wait, Chris,
Yeah.
is there a way for you guys not to break us out? Because Marianne had to take a call, so it's just me and Beth. So we're gonna do it together.
Okay, yeah, let me do the breakout real quick and I can adjust the people in the rooms and I'll put Beth and Amy together.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Or
Then
by yourself.
You guys want to do that same thing for Mary and I too, so that we can both practice it, or is that?
Yeah, that'll make sense. That makes sense. Let me set this up.
You could put
The person with the shortest hair is going to be teaching first. Sorry, Neil. Took me a little bit to.
Chris, put Amy and Kelly together. Kelly Kirby together. Put Amy and Kelly
Hey,
together.
you guys there?
But they'll be. You want to do it that because they're going to work together, and then Kelly. And
Ben, I'm coming over.
Yeah, we're here.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
Put them in.
Hold on, real quick, guys. Hold on, everybody.
So everyone else is in a room. Other people are in a room together because they're working together. They're on, unless the only other way to do it.
Kelly and hold on.
And Mary. They're working separately in an actual room together, right? In an actual space together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hang tight real quick. But John had a great idea. Hold on. Yes, Kelly Kirby.
I'm gonna hang tight in the bathroom.
Yeah, so Amy and Kelly, you guys hear me? I put you all in a room together, but you're not working together. You're working with Amy, you're working with Beth, and Kelly, you're working with Mary.
It only took 6 brains for us to figure that out, right?
And yeah, we're not done yet.
Yeah, that's right. John's taking credit. John's like, that was easy.
Okay, cool. So I think we're good to go. I'm gonna open the rooms. You guys do your thing, and we will meet back when you are all done. And I'll be checking in. Yeah.
Hey, sorry, but it looks like Phil is inbound to my house right now, so he's about to walk in my door.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So
Okay.
just heads up if you put him in another room.
Okay, hang tight real quick. Ben, where's Phil?
He may not be on.
Okay, so no, Jade is not. What's that?
So show me by yourself in a room.
Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do is exchange that with Ben. Okay, cool. Charmaine, you're with Jade, Bree with Elizabeth, Courtney, Leanne, AJ and Gigi, Allison and Melody, Ben, you got Phil, Denise, you got Mia, Neil, you got Sherry, Kelly, you got Rebecca, Amy, and Kelly. I think we're good. All right, here we go. Ah! That was cool being able to exchange. And like,
Totally. It's necessary, right? To get involved more. Yeah, Amy. Okay. Now, are we able to just drop into a room and
yeah, we can go anywhere. Like,
listen to people teaching? So just hit a join in one of the rooms. Let's join this one.
So we're literally just reading.
Hi.
hey, we're just testing because we can join rooms in case you had questions. So we're gonna join and just make sure everyone's clear. You guys are good to go.
So I'm a little bit confused on like what parts we're supposed to read. There's a lot here, and
Yeah.
just read parts also or no? Like,
Yeah. So that this whole document, the vinyasa, transitions, just read every word of that thing.
read every what?
Every word, just read all the way through.
Oh, okay. This is important.
Yeah, mega simple. Like, take a comfortable seat. She'll take a comfortable seat. Stack the spine so the mind is alert.
How is it only going to take 20 minutes if it's a 60-minute class?
Not teaching any of the poses. As soon as Courtney, as soon as Leanne tells you the pose, you do the pose, and then Leanne's going to go right into the transition.
Okay.
Literally in the pose for like a second, 2 seconds.
Okay.
1 second. Yeah, no, don't teach the poses. Just highlight the transitions.
Okay.
So you're gonna be moving kind of fast, Courtney.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, we'll let you do it.
Thanks. Bye.
I think I have the part there.
Okay. Inhale and exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, nose. Come on to all fours. Tabletop. Inhale, heart forward. Cow. Exhale, spine.
Forth. Right hand spins forward, left hand spins back, and switching back and forth between the left hand forward, right hand backwards. And just repeat this about 4 times. And go ahead and shake the hands out. All right, and go ahead and get into a downward dog position. Go ahead and walk it out, bend the knees, lift the heels, left heel, right heel. Inhale high. Walk up, forward fold, shoulder opener, deep knee bend.
To the palms. Stretch out the back side of the hand. Then pop up to the fingertips. And downward dog. Walk the knees out. And bend the knees.
Lunge. Left foot steps back, downward dog. Plank, lower to belly, baby cobra, lower to belly,
teach it on autopilot. You want to be able to dream this stuff, right? Like, you'll start dreaming about teaching at some point, but you want it so wired, guys, that you can almost not mess it up, right? It's so in there. Or if you mess it up, you know exactly how to cue yourself out of it. So it's important. I just recently had an experience where there was a traumatic experience in my life. Something happened, and I was scheduled to teach, and I got up and taught, and I taught mostly from my subconscious, trying to keep my mind focused, but it was still spinning and spinning and spinning. And but it's so wired that as soon as I start teaching, it's just there. And so that's where you want to get to. At that point, you are going to want to start to shift it, and this is how to do it. And you start to add energy cues, and start to cue integration, start to cue expression, and what we're about to jump into. You guys good with that? All right, so perspective. The 3 ways of cueing perspective is breath, theme, and imagery. So what is perspective? It's basically everything that is outside of form and energy. And meaning, I'm speaking to the body when I'm talking about form. Put your arms here, put your legs here, and then pull the ribs in, set the shoulder blades, draw a line, pulls back. And the reason that's so effective is that because everyone knows they have bodies, and everyone understands, like, okay, I got to put my body in these positions. That's what yoga is. And I need to get really good at telling them what to do and how to do that. And then you take it to the next level of like, okay, now I have their bodies in position and they've aligned vertically. Now, how do I get them to like get stronger and stay safer, and then hold that experience and then work deeper into it? And that's when we have the effort, the energy conversation. But there's this whole subset of cueing that isn't form. You're not talking about the body. It isn't energy. You're not talking about effort, like do this more or do that less. You're talking about like, and this is why we lump it in perspective. Because when you say inhale, you didn't tell them to move the body, right? You could argue like, well, you told them to move the lungs. Well, you're not saying, I'd like you to inflate the lungs and then deflate the lungs. Like, no, you're saying inhale, exhale, right? But when you do that, think about meditation. We're changing our perspective by focusing the mind to the breath. So when you say inhale and exhale, what you're really doing is you're changing what their focus of attention is. You then, so that's breath, right? Inhale, arms, and that's just baked in. My point when I said like you're going to be doing perspective like right off the bat, because you're already wiring in. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, forward fold. But there's like, that's part of like just the tempo of the experience. But what I'm saying here more so is you've already got them in, and the cue is now take a deep breath in and a long breath out. Because the breath is voluntary and it's involuntary. So what we're doing then is shifting their perspective to the voluntary breathing to get their perspective on their breath, their focus on their breath, if that makes sense. Cool? Okay, so then you have like the breathe and the just breathe, inhale and exhale, feel the breath. We'll get there in a second. Don't jump ahead. And then theming, right? The theme is your quotes and your sound bites. We haven't done theming yet, have we? Okay, so the theme is like, what is the message that you want, that like the deeper message that you want to wrap in? Is it present moment awareness? Is it a quote of like, you know, out beyond all ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field and you will find me there. And then you talk about like, inside the house of right and wrong, there is no understanding and there is no empathy, which is why we can like justify hurting each other and killing each other. And once you get out, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't tell you to move your body. I didn't say effort in any way. But that's a really super powerful, important part of the practice as a teacher, is to start weaving a theme inside of it. So the quotes are anything you use that you want, like that's like the message that's going to be expressed in the class. Sound bites, they're just like little tidbits of like a little phrase that kind of subtly, and we'll go into a deeper whole theming discussion, so just let this kind of like marinate for a little bit. Sound bites are like little reminders throughout the class that just hints back to the theme.
It just hints back to the theme. If my theme was that out beyond the Rumi quote, out beyond all ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there's a field, you will find me there. And like all of a sudden my sound bites may be like, stop fixing the pose and making it right and just be, or something along those lines, where I didn't just say, remember the quote at the beginning, I'd like you to remember that now.
Come
right?
into a peaceful field of awareness or something like that, right? You can bring that field piece back in. But you see where Chris is going with this. It's not, we're taking pieces of what that quote was and dropping them into the class throughout.
Again, just to highlight, I didn't tell them to move their body. I didn't say engage or disengage or go deeper or anything like that. But I'm telling them something that will shift their perspective and bring it back to the theme. We'll go bigger here, but just so you know, that's like, raise your, like, let me change the view real quick. Raise your hand if some of the most impactful, best classes you've had more to do with this than what happened physically. That's the power of this. That's the power of the theme. That's why we want to present it, because this perspective stuff is some of the most powerful shit you can talk about inside of a class. The most impactful stuff that people will hold on to and it'll literally stay with them. I've done a theme before, and I just read a quote. That's all I did. And someone heard that quote inside of the class, went out and quit her job that she was miserable at. Weeks later, came to me and said, hey, listen, when you said that quote the other day, I didn't even know what she was talking about. She's like, it touched me so much, I went and quit my job. And I was like, I guarantee you, I did not theme about quitting your job if you're unhappy. I didn't say that shit. All I did was a quote. But this is my point behind, it wasn't the up dog, it wasn't the down dog, it wasn't engage strong. Like, that's all part of it. That's where we got to live. That's what people are coming for as far as asana is concerned. But if we can like throw seeds and drip water on them with all this beautiful stuff, all of a sudden you'll have more of an impact in their lives, as much of an impact in their lives from that as anything else. Does that make sense? I just want to really highlight, this is where, like, for us, the juice of the classes. But when you do all the other stuff really well, and then you add this, that's magic. Okay, let me switch the view. Sorry, speaker view, repent. Cool. Last thing is imagery.
So imagery is a little bit different than sound bites. Sound bites are going to be related to your theme. The quotes are going to be related to your theme. Imagery can be a little bit different in that I'll say something in a way that makes them process, that shifts perspective, and then makes them do an action. So what's kind of cool about this, guys, is that it's the next one. If you show you this real fast, is that I can say a form cue and it affects their energy and perspective. I can say an energy cue and it affects their form and their perspective. I can say a perspective cue and it affects the energy and the form. These all play on each other. So for perspective, if I use an imagery phrase like grow your roots deep into the earth, right? That's like, they're in a pose, they're in like a warrior two, and they're like, grow my roots deep into the earth. Oh, okay, I'll ground my feet stronger. Four corners ground, their hips may actually sink, so the form may change, the effort changes, and all I did is say something poetic, right? Grow your roots deep into the earth, right? Or breathe into the moment. Good time, right? Breathe into the moment, right? I didn't tell them to actually take a breath. I said, breathe in the moment. So they have to process. There's a processing that happens, a perspective shift of like, breathe into the moment. Oh, be with the moment and feel my breath in this moment. Oh, I got it. And all of a sudden, form shifts and energy shifts. It affects all of them. So what we're doing is we're getting, with imagery, we're using phrases that spark perspective and allows them to shift into I would say deeper expression, but maybe not a deeper expression, but shift their form and shift their energy, right? You guys have heard this 1,000 times in classes in all different ways. I'm trying to think of another one.
I have an example.
Reach impossibly high.
Reach impossibly high. Heart wide open. Like, it's beautiful, right? And it works, but like, what did I just tell him to do? I just gave him a perspective of like, oh, I'm gonna open my heart wide open. Go ahead, Charmaine.
Today in tree, you know, you've heard, I think you used one in tree today where it was something about spreading your branches. Some sort of imagery that you said. And I'm kind of like playing sports and stuff, like you kind of do everything really hard. Like everything you do is really intense and like kind of 0 or 100, not really in between. So I was like, like focusing really hard. But then I thought of like a tree. How many times have I done tree? But then I thought of like a tree, and trees have to sway in the wind. Like trees they're strong, but they're like bendy. And so I like relaxed and I was still in the pose. Nothing had changed visibly. It was only a mental shift, but it was huge for me.
That's awesome.
And that's just it. Just imagery. That's it. But all of a sudden your form shifted, right? Your energy shifted.
Yeah.
And it was all just born from you making a connection. I mean, how many times have you heard tree? Let's go to tree first.
Or you may hear teachers say, trees sway, let yourself sway if you need to sway, or something like that, right? And that's an imagery cue. Trees sway, like, oh yeah, trees do sway. So that means I don't have to go so intense. I can relax enough, still keeping my form, but relax a little bit till if I swabble a little bit or sway, it's okay. You know, so it's like an imagery cue doesn't necessarily. It's a great example, Charmaine, because an imagery cue doesn't necessarily make you go deeper. It shifts perspective in a way to, in this case, to lighten up a little bit, you know, or whatever it is. So it's powerful, guys, and it's a perspective shift.
Yeah, Bart is a genius at it. I mean, that dude's a wordsmith. His whole life has been devoted. Someone commented about Bart, like Bart, triple exclamation points. Yeah, I mean, he was a lawyer, trial litigation lawyer, and so he had been crafting the gift of gab. And then all of a sudden, I think of it like he had been, and then we just plugged him into yoga. And go, Bart. By the way, don't forget, you got to teach poses too, man. Don't just tell the stories.
Be technical too.
But like, oh my God, the beautiful like aspect of the story. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagery. Everyone clear on imagery? It's like, it's this beautiful way of saying something without really saying it and giving them an experience without being so technical about like this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
So what would be helpful for you guys, I think, is like for tomorrow's class and then any class in the future that you take, especially as you know, at home, keep your journal next to you and write down form, energy, perspective. And when you're practicing, if you hear a cue, you're like, whoa, that was cool. Oh, that's a form cue. Oh, that was cool. That's a perspective cue. Oh, that was cool. That's an energy cue. And write it down. And so you start to keep a log of this so that you have it at your fingertips of like, oh, I like that. I'm going to use that at this point. And you can kind of collect these ways of language.
Any other questions? That basically, if you guys can think of any other ways, any other things you've heard that don't fall under those 3 buckets of form, energy, and perspective, let us know. But I'm pretty sure this is a pretty exhaustive understanding of everything you could possibly say in a class falls under those. And remember, don't stress about like this aspect of it or energy. Like I would just take energy off the table right now mentally for yourself and like just focus on the form aspect. But when you start teaching, don't think this has to wait until you've got the form aspect stuff down. Because immediately, day 1, you can have a quote and have a theme that hits people right here and makes it a class to remember. Cool? So theming starts day 1. The moment you start teaching, like right now, have a quote. Get a quote that you love and just start like saying it to yourself. Say it at the beginning, say it at the end. We'll go over how to make that work on like the super basic level right off the get-go. Cool? Any questions about this at all? Let me change the view. All right, we're going to do just a quick pause. You guys have been at it for a little bit. Let's take just a couple minutes. Stand up, shake yourself out, do some qigong or do some movements and move the body a little bit. We have 2 more things. One's going to be short and then the other one we'll take it through the rest of the day. Cool. Right. So for those of you who are watching this as a replay, what you missed in the explanation of what just happened was what we talked about was the language, the basics of languaging a pose. And you have 3 ways of languaging a pose, like actually what you say. The form, right, which you'll see in a second, is the basic body position. It's basically how you set the pose up, and vertical stabilization. You have energy, muscular and organic, and you have perspective, which incorporates the breath, theming, and imagery. So check this out. This is the main part that you missed because John forgot to hit record. Yes, so here is the form. And the form, like I said, is the progression of the pose. You have the setup, which is the basic body position. You have the modification. You have how to deepen, what the deepest expression is, and how to exit. This is the structure through which we've been talking about clinicking. So we talk about, well, how do you set the body up? Basically, what do I do with my arms and legs? Then how do I modify that if needed? And then how do I deepen it? What's the deepest expression? And then how do I get out of it? How do you get out of it? It's typically the next pose. You just go to the next pose. But this, what's valuable about this is that you're speaking to all levels, your beginners, your intermediate, and your advanced people. Once you have that set up, vertical stabilization then sets them up to say, okay, now that you've gotten the body in the right position, you know the depth, how do you want them to be in terms of gravity? So you have the 7 principles of grounding the 4 corners of the feet, shins and thighs strong, pelvis to neutral, tailbone down, low belly and ribs draw back, side bodies lengthen up, triceps wrap, shoulder blades hug in, jawline pulls down. So once you have this, and what has been requested is a framework of in which steps am I highlighting which vertical stabilization principles. But this is the form of the pose. Then, just as a quick recap, because I'm pretty sure you got it at this point, you have energy. And energy is simply the amount of effort that you're putting in. And you have muscular energy, which is integration, hugging in, right, stabilizing. And then you have organic energy, which is expression or flexibility, expanding out. So once you have form, once you have energy, the last little bit is perspective. And if you're watching this through, you got the deep dive on that because we started recording. Cool. Between you and I, we'll get this right. Okay, so this is the Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. We've referenced it a couple times. It's an awesome book. You can add it to the list of 250 books that we've recommended. Talent Code, the subline is greatness isn't born, it's grown. Here's how. So it's a great book. This guy went to all these different talent hotspots around the world where there was a disproportionate amount of like Olympic level, like best of their best sport within this small community. And so he went to look and see like, what is it in the water? What is it? And what he found were 3 things. The main one we're going to talk about today is what he called deep practice. Cool? Okay, so the Talent Code, I'm going to read a couple different passages. The Talent Code is built on a revolutionary scientific discoveries involving a neural insulator called myelin, which some neurologists now consider to be the holy grail of acquiring skill. Here's why. Every human skill, whether it's playing baseball or playing Bach or teaching yoga, he doesn't put that in there, but I will, is created by chains of nerve fibers carrying tiny electrical impulse, basically a signal traveling through a circuit. Myelin's vital role is to wrap those nerve fibers the same way that rubber insulation wraps a copper wire, making the signal stronger and faster by preventing the electrical impulses from leaking out. When we fire our circuits in the right way, when we practice swinging that bat or playing that note or teaching that pose, our myelin responds by wrapping layers of insulation around that neural circuit. Each new layer adding a bit more skill and speed. The thicker the myelin gets, the better it insulates, and the faster and more accurate our movements and thoughts become. Super important. Okay, hang tight. So he goes on, this is later in the book, it says, myelin is sneaky stuff. It's not possible to sense myelin growing along your nerve fibers any more than you can sense your heart and lungs becoming more efficient after a workout. It is possible, however, to sense the telltale set of secondary feelings associated with acquiring new skills, the myelin version of feeling the burn. So as he traveled to this various talent hotbeds, he asked people for words that describe the sensations of their most productive practices. Here's what they said: attention, connect, build, whole, alert, focus, mistake, and repeat. Tiring, edge, and awake. I want to talk about a footnote because this is really important. It says, here's a list of words he didn't hear: natural, effortless, routine, automatic. None of those words were in those hotbeds. Okay. This is a distinctive list that evokes a feeling of reaching, falling short, and reaching again. It's the language of mountain climbers, describing a sensation that is stepwise, incremental, connective. It's the feeling of straining toward a target and falling just short, what Martha Graham called divine dissatisfaction. It's the feeling Glenn Kurtz writes about in his book, Practicing. Each day, with every note, practicing is the same task. This essential human gesture, reaching out for an idea, for the grandeur of what you desire, and feeling it slip through your fingers. It's a feeling that that brings to mind Robert Bjork's idea of the sweet spot, that productive, uncomfortable terrain located just beyond your current abilities, where our reach exceeds our grasp. Deep practice is not simply about struggling, it's about seeking out a particular struggle, which involves a cycle of distinct actions. Pick a target, reach for it, evaluate the gap between the target and the reach, and then return to step one. Cool, last bit, this is gonna be the best part. Of all the images that communicate the sensation of deep practice, my favorite is that of staggering babies. Long story short, a few years ago, a group of American and Norwegian researchers did a study to see what made babies improve at walking. They discovered that the key factor wasn't height or weight or age or brain development or any other innate trait, but rather the amount of time they spent firing their circuits trying to walk. However well this finding might support our thesis, its real use is to paint a vivid picture of what deep practice feels like. It's the feeling, in short, of being a staggering baby, of intently, clumsily lurching toward a goal and toppling over. It's a wobbly, discomforting sensation that any sensible person would instinctively seek to avoid. Yet the longer the babies remained in that state, the more willing they were to endure it and to permit themselves to fail, the more myelin they built and the more skill they earned. The staggering babies embody the deepest truth about deep practice. To get good, it's helpful to be willing or even enthusiastic about being bad. Baby steps are the royal road to skill. Pretty good stuff, right?
It's a game changer book. It's definitely worth getting.
This book changed the way we do everything. Our entire teacher training, this changed everything. Cool.
Oh, that's cool.
No. Yeah. Just ordered. Nice. Oh my God. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, and so why do we tell you that? What is the point of that? Because this is the reality of what you're going through now. This is the reality of we're framing it in learning how to teach yoga, but this thing is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's anytime you want to acquire skill, you want to get better at something. Remember the staggering baby story. The only thing that got them to acquire the skill was time spent stumbling to acquire the skill. Because what's happening in the brain is those circuits are firing, and the more you fire them, the more myelin wraps. The more the myelin wraps, the more efficient and effective those circuits get. Here's the best, one of the best examples. I can shoot a jump shot, but Steph Curry can shoot a jump shot too. What's the difference between Steph Curry and me? He's done it so many times. The myelin wrapped is so much tighter that he has perfected the motion to shoot a jump shot, where I might as well be 5 years old shooting a jump shot because I don't do it enough. Now, I could acquire the skill to do it if I put the time and the effort, energy into it, but I don't value it. What we're saying now is you're in a teacher training, so you obviously value wanting to teach, and so we're going to put you to the test to honor the staggering baby feeling.
It's the unconscious skillfulness level, right? That's what Chris is describing. It's the unconscious skillfulness level, where you have the myelin wrapped so tight, you've patterned it so well that you can do it without thinking about it.
So you guys ready? Okay, so this is what we're gonna have you do. Open up your manuals.
To the 60-minute script.
To the 60-minute script.
So it's 60-minute script, page 1. Yeah, Vinyasa script.
Yeah, you get.
So it's Vinyasa script 60-minute. Vinyasa script 60-minute.
Hang tight real quick. I have a question for John that I don't want you to. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so should I have it open into the side then, or just close it? Completely close it.
I think just close it, because then, so grab your manuals and close them.
Yeah, let's close our manuals.
Close your manuals, because then the other person can help.
Okay, that's cool. Like that. So we are going to do. So you're going to break out. Denise, you got this, girl. Don't even.
Remember the staggering babies.
Remember the staggering babies. Okay, so we're going to put you into rooms. So we'll do a breakout room again, and you'll be with somebody. And you're going to teach that person all the way up to Om without the script. I'm looking at eyes. Hey, you guys are super chill. Everyone's like, yeah, I got this. No one was like, we didn't see any of these. Well, except for Denise, but everyone else was really chill with it. So you're going to teach without the script all the way up to Om. If you get stuck, you can ask your partner, what's the next thing? You get one phone a friend. Do you guys remember that way back in the day? Phone a friend.
Here's the deal. When you get stuck, wherever you get stuck, so say like you teach the breathing and you get to all fours and you don't remember what to do there, and you're like, hey, I forgot, what do we do here? And they're like, oh, do cat cow. Back it up to the point, say exhale, and now come on to all fours and then go right through it. It's super important that where you mess up and the person helps you, you don't just like
jump ahead,
just keep going. You got to stop and then redo it, because that specific act is what's going to help that myelin wrap around that circuit. Cool? What's really cool about this is you typically wouldn't just try to teach this without the script. No student in like years and years just says, I'm not going to do it with the script anymore. If you have, you're an anomaly. Congratulations. However, what the power of this is you will then stumble. We are looking not to just struggle randomly, but to pick a specific struggle, meaning highlight what you don't know so that you can understand you don't know it, and then you can, by virtue of not knowing it and stumbling and getting a little frustrated, if that's what happens, your literally brain will earmark it and you will never forget that again.
We want you to struggle. We want you to experience the struggle. We want you to experience the staggering baby experience, right? So come into it knowing, okay, I'm going to mess this up somewhere, right? And if you don't, congratulations, that's cool. But I want to highlight what Chris is saying because it's so vitally important. We tend to want to focus on the things we do best. So if we're teaching, I want to focus on the part that I have memorized and work that part. We have to focus, and this is against the grain, right, for us. We have to focus on the part we don't know as well, the part we're going to stumble with, because that's the part that we then need to go back and go through, go back and go through, go back and go through to get it wired, right? So it's important. What Chris said is vitally important. This is what it teaches in the talent code. When you hit the part that you're struggling with, the part you don't really know, the part you stumble, stop, get straight on it. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to say. Go back and then teach it just before that all the way through. You guys good with that? Does that make sense? Any questions? You guys super excited? You guys look excited.
No, cool. It's okay. You'll get it. You'll be fine or not. It's up to you. But just do it. It's okay. Have fun. Don't have fun. It's all totally up to you. It's your choice. But get it done. So what we're going to do is have each person go. One person goes, and then you get to Ohm, and then the other person goes, and then you get to Ohm. And then that'll be it for this afternoon, evening.
So just to Ohm, right? From take a seat. Hey, everybody, I'm John. Let's all come to a comfortable seat, and we'll begin from that point all the way up to, and let's join in the sound of Ohm. And then that's it. And then let the other person go, okay? Live.
Line. Cool. Okay, I'm going to break you out into your rooms. It'll be the same rooms as before. I think maybe there's a couple of you that are off. Hold on real quick. For Elizabeth. Yeah, most of you have the same. For some reason, there's a couple of people that have been adjusted.
Ben and Phil can go together, so they're in one room.
Yeah, Ben and Phil, that's good. Amy, they are good.
We can put Amy with, but they have 3 now. So if we can get Amy with Neil, then Amy can go with Neil, and then Marianne and Beth can go together.
Okay, so what do I do?
Put Amy with Neil, and then Kelly will be in a room by herself because she's with Mary.
Change Amy with
Neil.
Okay. Yeah, where are you?
Okay. And that should work.
Oh no. Sorry, hold on.
Change Neil, not Kelly. I'll change Neil. Okay. So Kelly will stay.
No, hold on.
Okay, you got it.
With Amy, right?
No, Neil with Amy.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm doing. I just can't find Amy's name.
There she is.
Okay, there she is.
Okay.
Amy, Neil, Rebecca,
Okay.
and then Phil there. Amy.
Okay. Sweet.
Okay, I'm gonna open the rooms, and I think there's gonna be one person who has one person, but we'll figure it out. Start breaking off, and then we'll fix if there's one person who's the odd person. We may have dropped one person. One person may have left. I think it's gonna be.
Antoine?
Oh yeah, where is it? Oh no, yeah, he's AJ.
Oh, Antoine's up there.
But he's right here too.
Gigi.
Sherry. Courtney. Jay.
Antoine, are you on? Do you have 2 devices that are on?
What's his name?
Okay. Because I think Gigi can go with Rebecca.
Yeah, I got him. Because Rebecca was with Kelly Burke.
Okay.
But I think Kelly Burke dipped out.
Okay.
So I put Sherry with Rebecca.
Okay. Sweet.
Okay.
Nice. That's such a good book. So good. So with so I got my trilogy. Did you get your trilogy?
No, I said it was on its way, but I hadn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. All right, we're recording again. Cool. All righty. So 4 seconds, everyone will be back. It is. All right.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
Are we all back? Did that work? Cool. Okay, cool. Did everyone, did I cut anybody off? Did was anyone still teaching?
Amy was.
Yeah. It's okay.
She was doing incredible too. She was doing amazing.
I'm sure. I checked in just before she started. Freaked her out a little bit, but it's all good. Chris said bye. He had a kid thing. His girls need to be picked up, so he had to run. But how was that, guys? How did it feel?
It was a little uncomfortable.
A little uncomfortable?
Yeah, but we made it through. I'm glad we did it.
Cool.
And that's when you and Chris jumped in right before I started. After you guys came up on the screen, I was like, oh my God, what do I do?
Did that freak you out?
A little bit.
A little bit. Don't let it freak you out. Now, the point then is Sherry brought up a good point. It was uncomfortable. It should be. Like at this stage, unless you've been really just drilling and drilling and drilling, practicing a lot, for most of us, that should have felt a little bit like uncomfortable. Now, raise your hand if you read the script. If you want to, anyone read the script? Yeah, a couple of you. Was that because you were like, I don't even know what the next word is. There's no way I can do this. Okay.
Oh no, it was only after I stumbled.
Okay. Oh, so you were just picking it up at that point. That's cool. Cool. Now the key, what the key is when we're talking about deep practice method, guys, the point of that is to see where it is that we're struggling, right? In just that little section, right? Just from take a seat to let's ohm together. And so if I would dare say, for those of you who did use a script, I would dare say that you do know parts of that. When I jumped into one of the groups, can't remember who it was, somebody was moving and teaching, which is totally fine at this stage. Like move, like you know it in your body. So if you did use the script, and I should have said this in the beginning, let yourself be okay right now to move your body and then tell the person what you're doing as you move the body. Right? Because although you think, okay, there's no way I don't know it, your body knows it. You've done it enough times in your body where you could move your body and all of a sudden talk it out. So that could be a first step. Now, we don't want to get caught in that because all of a sudden we'll get stuck in a place where we have to practice in order to teach. And we don't want to do that. But at this stage, it's okay. Right? At this stage where we're just trying to get the words out of our mouth and move people through the practice, it's okay if you have to move a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Just so you can trigger the memory and go, oh, okay, I do know more than I think I do, right? The other thing that happened, go ahead, Denise.
Oh, because when you guys teach it, like I know what you're gonna say before you say it, but when I have to do it, I go like blank. But in the script, in the written script versus when I listen to the video, where is the back bend in before Like in the written script, I don't see it, but I swear that you teach at one point to do a back bend and then come up again. Am I losing my mind?
Yeah, it's right. Denise, it's right after the second side of the first step back salutation. So it's left foot back, and so it's not in the part up to ohm, it's just past that. So it's the first step back salutation on the left side. Left foot back, left foot forward. Then we move up, we do a back bend, then we come into chair. That preps us for crescent pose, because the crescent pose is basically a one-legged chair with a back bend. So it's in that place. Part of this also, guys, is letting ourselves be okay with it's the stumbling baby thing, letting ourselves be okay being learners, letting ourselves be okay not being perfect at this part of it. Because again, like what Daniel Coyle's talking about in the talent code is reaching for the parts that we're not good at. Reaching, you know, and so we're like, okay, I'm not good at all of it. It's the next thing it says, but the reality is, you know, parts of it. And so we want to be able to teach those parts to get out of the performance anxiety side of it, like this idea that I have to show up and do good, and then show the person that I'm teaching that I know what I'm doing and I'm doing good at it. Like clear all of that out and let each other like help each other get better by saying, what is it that I'm struggling with? Where is it that I'm struggling? And the only way we know that is if we step into this and say, okay, I'm going to try to teach this segment without help. And then when we get stuck, okay, what's the next line? Someone wrote line, exclamation point, right? What's the next line? Give them the next line, and then, okay, let me go back and teach that line through. And then let me go back and do it again and again and again. So we're going to be working with this more. So tomorrow we'll be playing with this. And what I don't want you guys to do is stay up all night trying to memorize the script for tomorrow. Just let yourself be with it, right? Tomorrow we're going to pull out pieces, and we're just going to do we're going to do segments, and we're going to practice segments. We'll go through, as we get into it, we'll go through, so you use this, we'll do a segment with the script and then immediately go off and do it without the script. And so we start to get that repetition and start to get comfortable with it and see where we are with it. So, so that'll be some of the work we do tomorrow. But again, let yourself be okay struggling. It's the learning phase of it. You got to we have to be okay taking baby steps. We have to be okay stumbling. We have to be okay in this learning process. And in fact, if we get better faster. If we let ourselves be okay, if we let ourselves off the hook, we say, okay, I'm learning at this, I'm stumbling forward. This is my exact experience with so many aspects of my life right now. I'm still like tech. This last month, guys, and you guys know, if you've watched any of what Chris and I are doing, like stumbling. Like, guys, oh, I didn't hit a right button. The sound is off for some reason. Just ridiculous amounts of mistakes. And it's mistakes, it's samples. So it's not failures, it's samples. I'm like, oh, there's a sample. I won't do it again. Oh, there's a sample. I'll get better at that. Oh, there's another sample. I've had a lot of samples these last couple of months, but it's the same stuff, right? I'm choosing to step into this space in my life that I'm not good at right now. And when I allow myself to step into that space knowing I'm not good at it, then I let myself off the hook and I say, I'm going to get a bunch of samples, and I'm going to get a bunch of samples as fast as I can. Because guess what that does? It gets me better faster. And the same thing goes with teaching. Get as many samples as you can, as fast as you can. Get samples. What I mean, what I'm saying that, right? Fail forward. Get the failures. Like, let it be, but let it be samples. Let it be results. Get as many as you can, because that's going to get you good fast. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, awesome. Any last questions? No, everybody good? Comments? Cool. All right, let's end formally, and we'll call it a night. Put that up a little bit. Okay. So let's ground the sit bones, stack the spine, close the eyes. Let's share in the breath. Take a long inhale and a long exhale. Bring your hands to heart center, prayer position. Allowing all that was done to be all that was needed to be done. Let's join our voices to create one voice, one sound of Om. Take a big inhale. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful night. We'll see you guys in the morning.
Thanks, man. We're on YouTube too. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Later, guys.
See you
Bye,
guys.
fam.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hi guys, thank you, John, so much.
Thank you.
Well,